Welcome to the Main Character Podcast. I am your host, Brandon Hamblin, main character of my own story. But this podcast isn't about me. It's about you, and all of you. Every person that has ever lived on this planet, all 8 billion people here now, all that came before us, and all that will come hereafter are the main characters in their own story. My aim is to interview people that embody living in their energy and discovering from their perspective what their perception of reality is like. Buckle up. You're about to experience the world through another main character's eyes. Well, hopefully you have a good experience and you aren't like, yeah, that Brandon guy, don't go on his podcast. He's crazy.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. So how long have you two been together?
2010. We've been married for 2015. So we were together 5 years.
Oh, very nice. Yeah.
And, yeah, so it's been a fun and a wild ride, all of it together.
That is marriage.
Yeah.
That is relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess I should probably set up a little bit more than totally just diving in.
Okay.
This is about you. So the reason I do the podcast is I'm fascinated about how everybody sees reality and does it. It's the classic, if I write a 6 down, from my angle, it looks like a 6. From your angle, it looks like a 9. And we both think we're right, and we are right. But then getting the other person's perspective opens it up to go, oh, it could also be a 6 or it could also be a 9. That's cool. I hadn't considered that before.
Yeah.
Because everybody has what I've seen in some people is they get so locked in on this is the way, this is the way, this is the way, right? And yeah, based on your experience, that is the way. Mm-hmm. But then when you have somebody, especially polar opposite, there's a reason they came to that conclusion and it can't just be dismissed. Yeah. And so there might be something like, good example, my best friend, totally opposite end of the political spectrum, totally opposite end of the spiritual religious realm, but him and I have the most awesome conversations because we love each other. We're willing to have respectful conversations with each other and like, okay, well, why do you see it that way?
I love that.
And what's great is most of the time we end up coming to the same realization, and we might still have a different solution to the problem, but we can at least recognize and go, oh, okay, yeah, this is a thing. Here's how we got here. You have this way of wanting to fix it or tackle it or whatever the thing is. And so anyways, it's, to me, it comes back to the love God, love each other. Mm-hmm. If you do those things, you have open, respectful conversations and learn.
Yeah.
So the other piece of the setup is, we're going to explore you. We can go as wide or as narrow or as deep as it, or as shallow on any subject that you want. But, just the idea is to figure out you and how you got to be you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So obviously, marrying your husband is a big piece of it. So 2010 to 2015, you guys were dating.
Yep.
And then got married in 15.
Yeah.
Was that kind of like a trial phase? Like, let's see if this is actually going to work.
No, I think we knew, it was, we both knew and we had committed, but there was probably some questions too, as far as like, he had been married before and, so a lot of times it's just like, how do all these, there was just a lot of things that we were kind of working through. And then when it was time, then it was time.
That's perfect.
Yeah. So it was good. The funny thing is, the question of like, is something going to change? We've got this great relationship. Does that really matter? And I think a lot of times people will say that like, it's a piece of paper. Is it going to, right? And one of the things that we realized was like, whoa, it is very different. It's spiritual.
Yeah.
And you can't quite put a finger on it, but there's a lot of things that just get real quiet, when we have that commitment and have the celebration of our family and our community and all of that. And so, but yeah, we definitely could feel a difference when we were married. And a lot of times, we would say like, and why do we wait so long,
Right.
with it? But then, I think we were also at a stronger foundation at the time.
Yeah.
We were in very different places when we got married than when we first met and started dating.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, we went on quite a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So I'm just going to touch on something really quick, and then I'm curious about the journey. People are afraid of things changing, right, when they get married.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes sense because there is an extra level of commitment, whether it's legal, religious, or whatever it is, there is now a more firm, committed bond. And so there's going to be a change from that, but also, when people come together, that's who they are in that moment. And then that relationship is going to grow, but the people themselves are going to grow autonomously. And so, there's that expectation of, okay, this is the person I'm marrying and I'm making this commitment because I know what to expect here. Well, that's kind of true. But if you're both growing, all of it's going to grow and change. And so, that's one of the big things that Rachel and I have gone through is we've been together. We just celebrated 20 years together last summer. We're definitely different people than we were when we got married.
Yeah.
And so we had a very serious, because we ended up leaving the religion that we were raised in and
Mm-hmm.
were raising our family in. And that had a pretty distinct role in the way that we saw our marriage.
Yeah.
Well, you take that away and now it's, okay, hold on. Some of our boundaries are gone. Do we still want to be together? Is this how we still want to do life? And it was actually it was hard, but it was really good because it made us recommit and go, oh, so we're doing life together because we really enjoy doing life together. And we want us both to grow and we want our relationship to grow. So you mentioned journey. What was that like?
Oh, well, it is interesting because if you start here, right, it's in the middle of the story.
It's totally. So do we want?
It's totally in the middle of the story.
Do we want to go back? Because I want to cover it all. So where do you want to go? How do we define and how do we get to Sherilyn today?
Yeah. I grew up, my father was a minister.
Oh, cool.
And
what denomination?
He Assemblies of God.
Okay. Yep.
And he was a radio disc jockey.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So this is very familiar.
I was going to say, you take to this like a fish to water. You got a mic and headphones and you're good. We grew up singing in front of churches and, he had, at one point he was a host of a TV show. Oh, cool.
And, Christian television called The 11th Hour. And we were in California, in, Northern California. And then we were missionaries in the Philippines. Oh, cool. So 8 years of living in the Philippines. And so, I mean, I can stay here or I can talk about how it ties to where Tim and I were at. But, I went through a journey myself later on. I came back. I know you want to cover the middle part too.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. So yeah, lived there for 8 years. My 6th grade year, my mom had cancer.
Oh no.
She had breast cancer.
Okay.
And had surgery and stuff. And then we came back. There's so much in all these years,
Okay,
it's just
let's do that. Let's grab it and we'll because it'll all add up too. So
it'll all get there.
So
but
you're born and initially raised in North California.
Yes.
Dad's minister, doing a couple different media things.
Yeah.
When did you guys move to the Philippines? How old were you?
So my dad was involved in a ministry called Far East Broadcasting Company.
Okay.
And so he did radio, but one of the things that they had done was they had purchased a radio tower that the U.S. had used during, I think it was World War II.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And so they purchased it, and then their whole thing was spreading the gospel into closed countries using radio.
Oh, brilliant.
So
kind of some like pirate radio almost.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
So my dad, and I mean, even in his life, it was interesting because he became a Christian when he was 12.
Oh, cool.
And he was ordained when he was 16.
Oh, wow.
So he always knew.
He was in and in.
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
He was passionate. And so like even when during the Vietnam War, when he had his like hippie hair and his handled, mustache and everything, right? The whole thing. He had lived in Hawaii at one point, had a lei around his neck, like a blue one when my mom got married.
Oh, that's so cute.
All that with his bell bottoms.
Oh, yeah. I would love
thing,
to see a picture of that.
Oh,
just
gosh,
a stud.
He was a stud.
Yeah.
So anyway, he was, like into this from the beginning, right? And so he he would preach into closed countries. He did a lot of drama and all that. So he had the radio voice. Hi, this is Steve Overstreet, but I can't do the deep voice, right?
Yeah.
Very, deep voice.
Good radio voice.
Really good radio voice.
Yeah.
And so he felt called to go to the Philippines. My mom was a nurse.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And she had initially worked at the hospital, and then when we went to move to the Philippines, she did nursing there.
Yeah.
And
what a good combo. Healing the soul, healing the body.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So they did a lot of like shows. He had a singing school.
Cool.
And so the first couple years that we were there, we arrived just after, maybe within a year of when the Marcos dictatorship fell.
Oh, yeah. So like calm, peaceful, easy
Totally.
time to be over there.
Totally. Yeah. I was just talking to my brother recently because I was young, I was 6, when we moved over.
And older brother?
Older brother.
Older brother.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's interesting that now we're like, so what happened?
Right.
Like, right. To be able to ask these questions, like we didn't really have these conversations. And so he was saying that when we arrived in Manila, there was a coup attempt when we got there.
Oh, geez.
That was on the street that we were in. I didn't remember this. And so we had to stay put in Manila before we went to Davao. And so Manila is up north.
Okay.
That's the capital.
Yeah.
And then Davao is down at the bottom. And if you look at the Philippines, it looks like a donkey's head.
Yes.
So big ear at the top and a mouth at the bottom, right? And then you've got these islands on the side that are like the neck of the donkey.
Yeah.
And so we were kind of up, between the ear and the head up there, and then moved down to the mouth.
Okay.
Yeah. So on that street, I'm like, really? Chris? He was like, oh, I was terrified. There was bombs going off.
Oh, geez.
I didn't even remember that. They were probably like, oh, look, it's fireworks.
Right.
Whatever they could tell me to make me, be calm,
not worry.
Right?
Yeah. And some of that ignorance is bliss piece too.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a lot of things that were going on at the time. We moved to in Davao. When we moved down there, we moved to a neighborhood that probably within that year beforehand, there was a missionary family that had gotten murdered in our neighborhood.
Oh, wow.
And so just a lot of turmoil.
Yeah.
that was happening. And as kids you play, but then like for me anyway, I'm younger, right? Like, so kids deal with trauma like through play. You might look at them and go, okay, there's no problem. That's, not an issue.
Right.
For my brother Chris, he may have been able to communicate a little bit more about his fears and stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So we were there for 2 years in Davao and at a Missionary Kid school.
Yeah.
There. And I just remember a lot of adventures. We had like floods, big, so they'd call them typhoons instead of hurricanes.
Okay. Yep.
And so there would be a lot of rain. It was rainy season and floods that would come up. And as a 6-year-old, we were wading through the water, like all the way up to my waist.
Oh, geez.
Right. And so just a lot of like really wild, adventurous experiences, climbing trees and things with that. And then my mom and dad would travel up to the hill tribes and she would teach hygiene and my dad would preach.
Yeah.
And wading through rivers and other just a lot of like jungle type stuff.
Yeah, definitely not North California.
No. And we were in this city, but I remember even things like there was one main highway and my mom would bring cookies to the guys that the lights were manned by people in a booth.
Oh.
And they would turn them on and off to like
for the traffic.
For the traffic.
Yeah.
And my mom would bring them cookies and they made friends with them. And so they recognized our car. So whenever they saw our car, and I don't know that they did this for that, you know?
Yeah.
But whenever they saw our car, they always switched the lights. So then that way we could go right through. And, actually now that I think about it, I should, recently, a lot of times I would say to myself like, every time I want to move forward, I keep hitting a wall. And then I got a new car and I walk up to my car and the beep, beep, the door just opens, right? Cause I've got the key fob.
Yeah.
Right. And I finally realized I'm like, I need to stop telling that story.
Oh,
that I have closed doors. And I'm like, no, doors are opening for me all the time. And so I'm like, ooh, maybe I should like, tie that in of like,
that.
Like, I'm the girl that they turn the lights on. I'm like, I can move forward.
Cool.
So yeah, anyway, that was, the early years. And then we moved up to, Manila.
Oh yeah.
And I went to the Missionary Kid school up there.
Yeah.
And, so while we were there though, my 5th grade year, I told you there was going to be things.
I love this. This is great.
Tell you, like, oh my gosh. Okay, so each year, gosh. So 3rd grade, I moved up and I started in 3rd grade.
Okay, yeah, in Manila.
Yeah. In 3rd grade during New Year's, I had a classmate so not a whole lot of thinking at times like there. It was just kind of a lot real rough, sometimes in the Philippines, even though it's city and all that, right?
Right.
So during New Year's, some of these guys would shoot guns into the air.
Yeah, why not?
Right? It's like fireworks, you know? Hey, we're fine.
It's loud.
So, one of my classmates was sitting on a seesaw during the New Year's celebration and she had a little baby between her legs.
Oh.
And a freaking bullet landed in her leg. It missed within inches of this child's life.
Oh my
right?
gosh.
And so, just hanging out in the Philippines, I've got a classmate that's got a cast on her leg.
Yeah, from a gunshot wound.
From a gunshot wound, just sitting on a seesaw as a kid.
Oh
right?
my gosh.
So there's stories like that.
Well, yeah.
Were bizarre.
Yeah, that's not normal.
Wading through water, right? Like, the early years, there was a point, I don't think it was our house, but I remember hearing a story of like some folks who found a boa constrictor in the toilet I think it was a boa constrictor. And they pulled it out and figured out how to get it out of the toilet. But then the Filipinos and the Chinese were fighting over it because one group wanted to eat the boa constrictor and the other one thought that snakes were lucky. Right? So like...
This is a 6. This is a 9. No, it's a snake.
It's a snake.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh. So for a long time, I was actually very terrified of going to the bathroom because I thought I was going to see a snake.
Yeah.
But yeah. So there's, I mean, like, again, a lot of like really wild stories. My brother and his friends doing firecrackers, like the 5-star firecrackers that I think they're illegal here.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. Yeah.
And like sticking them in cow patties because the cows would wander the streets and then they would blow up against the neighbor's fence. And, you know, I mean, just again, like pretty wild stuff. Like I collected frogs, you know, little baby frogs. Yeah. And I had a little shoebox and I had at one point like 200 frogs, you know.
Oh my gosh.
Like, they died.
I was going to say,
yeah,
not their natural environment shoebox. No.
But you know, things like that was like pretty adventurous. And I think we get a little bit of that up here in North Idaho for some of the kids, especially if they live in the country, right? Or if they're homeschooled.
Right.
But that was just our life. And so in the Philippines, that was, the frogs were in Davao. But back in Manila, so that was 3rd grade. In 5th grade, you know, and I really, like, that's one of the things when you live in a different culture is you really don't feel like you fit in.
I was going to say, with all of this, how were you guys accepted? And especially missionary schools, was it a lot of white missionary kids or was it a mix of locals and the missionary?
It was international.
Okay.
So people all over, but not very many Filipinos there.
Okay. Yep.
If they were missionaries, they had a reduced cost for the school because it was a private school.
Yeah.
And so otherwise it was a higher cost. So some of the folks that came that weren't missionaries maybe were business people and putting their kids in the school there.
Yeah,
right?
Makes sense.
So not a whole lot of locals, but it was tough too. Like, I mean, we were all dealing with trauma. And so we were all like, and people would leave all the time. So you'd bond really fast with your friends.
Yeah.
And then you have to say goodbye.
Right.
Like sometimes in the middle of the year, sometimes at the end of the year. So constantly saying goodbye to people.
Right.
Right. And sorry, I'm feeling it in my throat here.
Oh yeah. Well, and I'll just say, and that's one of those things where you could take something like that and then for the rest of your life be like, I'm not going to form deep relationships because people are just going to leave. Or you could do the opposite where it's, I don't know how long I'm going to have this person. I'm going to enjoy them and form that deep bond.
Yeah.
Or anywhere in between.
I did both. I did both. Yeah. I mean, and it was at different times of my life. So there was times where it was just like, let me tell you my whole life story and everything. Right.
Right.
Like, and it was almost a test sometimes. Like, I'm going to see if you leave, you know?
Yeah.
But, and then other times, so I am really authentic person.
Yeah.
And so I do share, but a lot of times it was like, even though I share things about me, I didn't really feel for a long time like I was truly sharing my heart. Right. It was like more in words, but not like being vulnerable.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. That makes sense.
So a lot of big journey with that, but my 5th grade year was a key year. You know, even when I was in school, I was struggling with learning and stuff too. And it makes sense with the traumas and the new moves and stuff like that, right? Like going to a new school, trying to fit in and stuff with friends. But 5th grade, it's funny. I was telling somebody the other day, like we were talking about math. Yeah. And I'm like, I still count on my fingers.
Yeah. I'm a banker. I still count on my fingers.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I was a substitute teacher at one point, and the kids are like, hey, you know, they say whatever the problem is. And they're like, is that right? And I'd be sitting there tapping, like silently tapping my fingers against my leg.
Yeah.
And I'm, you know, they do the whole like, well, what do you think? right?
Yeah.
While I'm sitting here trying to calculate it, and I'm like, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I never got, and especially like the higher numbers of multiplication.
Right.
And so I'm talking to my friend and my friend's husband, and so he doesn't know this background that, of my life. And I go, you know what? I've always had a hard time with the higher numbers, like, 7, 8, 9, right? Like, for multiplication. I wish I learned the tricks and stuff, and I always had a hard time. And it just kind of dawned on me. And then I'm like, well, that was the year that my mom had breast cancer.
Oh.
And then all of a sudden I go, oh, that was also the same year that 2 of my teachers were kidnapped.
Holy
and
smokes.
I'm like, no wonder I struggle with math. You know, like, right? Like that was the same year that was like, we were learning that.
Right. Well, and again, that can lead to 2 things of, one, you're just not getting the education because, well, the teachers got kidnapped. So there's all sorts of uncertainty there, but also association with this isn't healthy. This isn't a good thing. This isn't what I like. So an aversion too.
Right.
It could be both of those.
It could be both, So, I mean, I was in the slow group in school.
Okay.
I always thought I was dumb.
Oh.
And as an adult going, well, no wonder I struggled, know, like at the time. It's not that I'm dumb. Right?
No.
But, and I would hear the story all the time because my dad, his background, like he wasn't raised in a Christian home.
Right.
His great grandfather would beat my dad, my dad's dad.
Oh, yeah.
And my dad's dad was verbally abusive, not so much physically abusive, but
still carried on that pattern in a way.
Rager, right? Like he'd spill a glass of milk and it just was explosive, right? And constantly you're a dummy and that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So over the years, the thing has been trying to reverse this generational pattern, right?
Yep.
And so my dad, always thought he was stupid and really struggled. And he would say, oh, I don't know how this is possible, but I got a 0.06 GPA in college, right? Like, how do you get 0.06?
You get more for just showing up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And he just thought, he really struggled with that. And he wanted to make sure that we didn't struggle with that too.
Yeah.
But I still had that feeling.
Right.
Right. As a kid. And, but yeah, so my teachers in the middle of the year, and I can't remember what happened first. I think my mom got cancer the second half, maybe. I'm not sure. I don't remember which part of the year.
Okay. Yeah.
So, because we stayed in the Philippines during that year. So I think it was the second half. So I had learning struggles already.
Okay.
And I went to the resource room.
Yep.
And so I had a teacher that helped me like with my learning, and she was doing a lot of testing and all of that stuff with me.
Yeah.
And then I had my main teacher, and during the middle of the year, they went down to one of those small little islands that is in the neck of the donkey.
Yeah.
And they were there with another missionary family, and I think that their mission was doing something down there.
Yeah.
And they got kidnapped. They kicked the husband out of the car, I believe. And it was the wife and the daughters and then my 2 teachers.
Holy smokes.
And for quite a while, Muslim extremists, they were trying to take over, right? And they were fighting after the Marcos regime fell. But there was a number of different dynamics that was happening.
Yeah.
I have to check my history, but I think that there's a CIA connection to
that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
they tend to get their fingers into places they shouldn't.
So like, encouraging some of the, I don't know. Anyway, don't quote me. Go research it if you want to know. But yeah, so there was a lot of that was happening in the South.
Well, yeah.
And so they were kidnapped, and then eventually they were released. But in 5th grade, we were reading newspapers constantly, trying to find any news that we could about our teachers. Right.
Yeah. Well, and not only is that a disruption in your learning, but the fear of, I mean, you said earlier that a missionary family had been killed the year before you went down to Davao. And then now you're getting 2 teachers kidnapped. And I mean, that would just, and then you're dealing with the typhoons and everything else, the amount of uncertainty and what's the next thing.
Yeah.
That would be unsettling.
That was unsettling. And we moved that year. So we were on a compound, and it was for Far East Broadcasting Company. And so we had guards with their big guns, in these towers, right? Like guarding it, big barbed wire fences and stuff around, right? And our houses, I mean, even in Davao, big walls, shards of glass on the top, or like, right. So the houses were walled separate, right? And, so it's funny. I have all these memories that are popping in, and it's just like, stop. I'm on a track. So yeah, so that was just, it was a real different way of living. And we had the guards and stuff there on the compound, but we were safe. So as kids, we were playing capture the flag, and not like here. I've done capture the flag here.
Yeah.
No, how we did it in the Philippines was at night, wearing all black, black shirts over our eyes, so doing the whole ninja thing. And now I was, smaller girl, the high school kids, the high schoolers and the younger kids, we all played together.
Yeah, of course.
And so they were the ones that were the runners back and forth. But there was like this sidewalk that went right through the middle of this big compound.
Yeah.
And so that was our dividing line. But then they would like hide the flags and stuff. And we were, so we were trying to guard the line while they were all running back. And full on.
Like almost, hold on. I'm getting these weird notifications that are supposed to be turned off. And I think that sound's going to come through, and I don't want it. Let me fix this really quick.
I'm going to take a sip of water.
Yeah, I did a update, and I had all these turned off, and now they're like, we're going to be turned back on. Except I don't know. They're all turned off. I don't know where it's coming from. Okay, folks, ignore the weird thing. Well, that's some serious, that's not what we do over here generally.
No. So that was our safe place. I mean, it was, I think, again, so many different weird dynamics with friends and struggling with that. But, so 5th grade, we moved off of the compound.
Okay. Yep.
And we were in a place called Phil and Life Homes. And that was also guards, big fence, but it was bigger. It was more of a neighborhood, right?
Okay. Yep.
And we were closer to where the guards were. And so we were doing singing school.
Yeah.
And that we had to go to. And then my dad was helping to teach at the singing school.
Cool.
He also, with his ministry, ended up, teaching and raising up singers.
Yeah.
That they would go around and minister, and put on productions and plays and stuff like that in the Philippines. And so we had moved to the new place, and same thing, hey, that lot over there was where a little girl got raped. It was just like, it was all right there.
Yeah.
Right. And the stories that they would tell. So for me as a kid, and especially as a girl, like I couldn't go places
right
on my own.
Right.
And even as with women, right? Like, so my mom and I would go someplace, or we would have like what was called helpers.
Yeah.
Or there's another name for it, but I always called it helpers. Like, this is what we would say. So, or ate is like older sister.
Yeah. Okay.
So, so we had ates that lived with us that would help, and they were usually younger. And that would be kind of where they would be at for their career. So they'd get room and board. They'd also get pay.
Yeah. And they're Filipino.
And they're Filipino.
Yeah.
And they would help. Right. So, my ate was just like, she was my older sister.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, my ate Alma, she actually came, Alma was her name. She came with us from the beginning.
Okay.
So she moved to Manila with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And, so, you know, I'm raised with this woman.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so we all moved off the compound into this other house. And, my dog, I have to say my dog was the best. She came with us from Davao too. And her name was Angel, and she was literally like an angel the whole time. So like in the middle of all the pain and the trauma and other things, it was like I had
you
my
had
dog.
this. Yeah.
She was
sweetheart,
white, beautiful fur. I mean,
an angel.
She was an angel.
Yeah.
And so we were all there in 5th grade in this new place, but then we had to leave for my mom's cancer treatments and stuff, right? And then in 6th grade, so 5th grade, our teacher did come back.
I was going to say they got released.
They did. And, you know, part of the thing is, I don't know if they did or not. I mean, the rules with the missionary organizations is that we don't pay for.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Don't negotiate with terrorists.
We don't do ransom and stuff, right? Because
Yeah,
it just encourages it.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the thing was that they did end up getting released, but they did. And they couldn't continue.
No, I can't
obviously
imagine.
Right. So as kids, we're like, is she going to come back and be our teacher? And we're like,
No.
And, you know, and then they would pave it over and just be like, oh, nobody hurt them. They were fine. And, you know, like things that you find out as an adult, you're like, no.
Yeah.
So 6th grade, gosh, I'm going kind of slow, huh?
No, this is because it's painting a picture, and it's so good because my what I have running through my head is I had a Filipino friend that I worked with when I was 16, 17, 18.
Mm-hmm.
He was a head detailer at the car dealership I was working at.
Okay.
And he would tell me stories about the Philippines all the time.
Yeah.
And his wife was like, her dad or uncle was really high up in the Filipino government. He's like, come on over, you'll have a good time. Or we'll have you killed and hide the body and nobody will ever know. And I'm like, what the heck goes on in the Philippines, right? And then you learn the history and there's a lot of upheaval that's happened there, right? And not a lot of stability. And then I've been to Costa Rica, and when I think about Manila and Davao, I go, okay, well, I wonder if that's the same as like San Jose is all developed out and 70% of the population lives there. But then our expat friends are 5 hours south, and like they didn't get electricity and roads until a couple of years before they moved there. So still very culturally the way that it was for forever. And just so you go around the Philippines, and not only is there a lot of change, but I mean, the infrastructure, right? You've got people manually doing the lights, and so I love that you're painting the picture, and it helps.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. You know, they had, so everything was walled too, because you had little clusters of, I wouldn't say villages, but they would kind of create houses out of garbage, and they were called squatters.
Yeah.
That would live in these homes out of garbage. And so if the homes weren't guarded, one, you know, concerned about people breaking in and stuff, but the story that they would tell too is the squatters would come and live, and they would camp like at your house, wherever.
Yeah.
And there was nothing that you could do.
Right. What are you going to do?
So, so we had these big, giant gates and walls around our individual homes.
Yeah.
But then also around the whole infrastructure with the guards and stuff. And I think also because of some of the upheaval that had happened in those years too, that, you know, having guards made sense.
Well, yeah. Well, and especially if people are getting killed or kidnapped or any of that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it was a little bit calmer, up in Manila. Again, things a little bit more in Davao, but again, when we arrived and there was that coup, that was in Manila.
Right.
And we actually had, I forgot to mention this because this was like in third grade and stuff when we were in the compound, the missionary compound, they had military coups.
Oh yeah.
They had coups while we were there. And
Yeah.
in fact, we had a burgundy Mitsubishi. I don't remember which kind, right? Of the car.
Right.
And our parents during those coups, when we were young, were climbing so many trees that we got to climb. It was just amazing.
That would be a blast.
Making flower lays with the plumeria flowers and stuff as kids. That was things that we would do as for fun.
Yeah.
But they had military coups and they would write on the windows of the car news, right? Media, right? It's news.
Oh, yeah.
So then that way nobody would affect them.
Right.
Well, that was before Daniel Pearl.
Oh, why does that name ring a bell?
He was in the Middle East and he was news and he got targeted.
That's right. Yeah.
Right? So actually, like when that happened, that was like PTSD for me because it was like, that was the thing that saved my parents and all these people when they had to get off of the compound.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say, did your folks ever end up having any run-ins, any trouble, any?
Not fully that I'm aware of. There was a period where, the National Philippine Association, it was a rebel group.
Okay.
Yeah. That was down in South, that they were upset with the United States.
Yeah.
And so they were like, we're going to kill an American a week and blah, 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 until our demands are met.
Yeah.
My dad had big concerts. He had healing. They called them crusades back then. Okay.
Yeah.
Like Billy Graham, right?
Yeah.
Like they called them crusades.
Yeah.
But he had these healing crusades with thousands of people and his giant face on these posters.
Right.
And at one point,
if somebody's going to be a target, it's
they
your
were
dad.
praying. And my dad was like, really felt like, no, I'm still supposed to move forward.
Yeah.
They would pray for people and have like no eyeball and their eyeballs wouldn't grow back. Right.
Whoa.
I mean, all kinds of like really
cool
bizarre miracles.
Yeah.
Yes. You don't see that as much up here in the United States. We're very sciencey and the belief is real, but
we create our reality, right? So it's right there.
Right. So they would experience all these things. So my dad was like, no, we need to do this and still move forward. And what I appreciate about my dad is, the novelty, right? So his face on the poster is going to draw a lot of people. There's not a whole lot of things to do. He would bring other pastors and stuff in and go, okay, you lay your hands on this person. And he would pray with them.
Cool.
For that. So he was trying to bring them up too, right? And not just be about me, right?
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah. Well, because the pride cycle, right? That's a very easy thing to get wrapped up in ego and pride. And it's amazing that he did that.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so that, I think that was the one run-in. In Davao, my best friend's family, her dad, and he's a public figure, so I guess I can say he wrote a book, In Troubles Often. You can see it on Amazon, John Harrop.
Oh, cool.
And he was, he would travel, like it was his ministry to go down south.
Yeah.
And work with these tribes. Well, he had an encounter with some of the folks there, the MPA, I think it was. Well, he was British and Welsh and, American citizen, all of these things.
Yeah.
And so it was like, they were like, who are you? Are you CIA? Because why do you have all these passports? And he's like, no, I've got multiple citizenship.
Uh-huh.
Right. So they had broken into the house and like held the mom and stuff at gunpoint and had all this stuff, right? So there was a time where my best friend and her brother were staying with us.
Yeah.
But again, they just gloss it over. They kind of mention it, but don't tell all the things that happened and all of that, right? So there were some encounters like that were with people that were close to us. But again, you know, we're hearing about these things. And then, you know, there was one time, okay, so you go to the bank. This is in Manila. And they have 2 armed guards on either side of the door with their big, giant guns.
Yeah.
You know.
Not intimidating at all.
We were fine with it.
I was going to say, right.
We felt safe.
Well, and it's normal.
It was just normal in life.
Right.
But, you know, we had like family that came out to visit us, and then we'd take them to the bank, and they were like,
right.
Why are they doing that? We're like, no, it's good.
It's good.
It's good. But we had, at one point, there was 2 banks, our bank and then another bank right across the street, and hearing the story of a bank robbery that was happening across the street. And one of the guys that was part of our ministry was going to the bank, and he had to dive underneath a truck while bullets were flying because the guards for our bank was helping the guards there. And so then they were firing back and forth. And so he was like hiding underneath while his, you know, the truck that he was getting pegged.
Oh my gosh. Well, and those are the sorts of things that are so wild to me because I've been in banking for 20-ish years.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
And I've been robbed. And there's no security, and a lot of the banks around don't have like even the security glass. Mm-hmm. But as soon as you get robbed, you know, the bank will do a rent-a-cop sort of thing, station one, and then all the customers would come in and go, "Why do you have a guard out front? What happened?" Right? And so just what is normal?
Right.
What about your surroundings do you get accustomed to? And if you posted up 2 armed guards in front of a bank here in North Idaho, man, it would be news. Everybody would freak out. But you needed it because you're going to have a firefight potentially if somebody's robbing it.
Yeah. Like, I mean, you don't. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, and I could see why they would do that too, because who wants to continue to work at the bank after going through something like that, right? Like, it's not just the customers, but it's
the employees.
It's the employees.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so there were some run-ins like that. I don't remember the years, and I should probably look up the years for this. We were in the Philippines again. Typhoon season was every year.
Oh yeah.
Right. So as I'm mentioning the floods and stuff, like that's carrying through.
Right. You're doing it every year.
Like it was the early years that we had the floods, the water was real high.
Yeah.
In Manila, we had the typhoons, but I don't remember the water being.
Well, I would imagine
high.
The infrastructure was probably a little bit better.
It was better. Yeah. But we had like giant trees that were getting completely uprooted. And then as kids, like that became our jungle gym, and now we're climbing on the tree roots. Right. So at one point in 5th grade, we had a shipment that came from the US, and it was like, it took so long to get our shipment over to us. And then you had to barter.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we ended up, my cousin got, he won a radio ad. And he ended up, getting these, I don't know if I'm actually mixing. No, I might be mixing up. So that comes later.
Okay.
So I think, anyway, we got these scooters, right?
Oh, cool.
These little mopeds.
Yeah.
And one was like a Honda, and it was orange, and it was like, I think 70s. I've been looking online. I'm like, oh, that would be really cool to have this.
Yeah,
one,
it would be cool to get it again.
So we got these 2 ones, and one didn't quite work, needed to be fixed. And then there was the orange one, right? And so like to be able to release our shipment, they had to barter with the guys. And so they gave them one of the mopeds.
Yeah.
In the Philippines, this is also the thing that I learned later, is if they're like, I like that, I want that, you have to give it.
Oh.
So there's a sense of like communities of like, why do you have two of these things? You don't need them.
Yeah. Because I would imagine they aren't going to do that with both of them. Say, I like both of those. I want both of them. They see that you have an abundance of a thing.
Yeah.
They like one of the things.
I want one of those.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, can you release the shipment, please? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Like, so we did get our stuff. That happened about the same time as the Mount Pinatubo eruption, which changed the entire temperature of the globe.
Yes, it did.
And I remember ash.
Oh, I'm sure.
And it was like, oh, it's snowing, but then you can't breathe, right? And it was like,
and the cars don't start.
The shipment, the wooden crates were
covered
like outside, right? And they're getting covered. And during typhoons, like with the shipment, one of the things that came was a kite. And it was a Mickey and Minnie Mouse kite. And I'm like, ooh, Disney, you know, that's really fun. So, it wasn't really windy in the Philippines, except for in the middle of a typhoon.
Right, you're out there flying.
I'm flying kites with my friends in the middle of the typhoon, and it was like the school. We didn't have snow days; we had typhoon days.
Okay,
like, right. So if the typhoon was big enough, then the school shut down. So what did we do as kids? We ran around flying kites, you know, right? So there was a lot of just. I mean, it got stuck in a tree.
I was going to say, like, how long did that last?
Yeah, not too long.
Not too long.
But so there was a lot of like really crazy, fun, adventurous stuff there too. And
I like how you're making the best of whatever the situation is. And that could be put somebody in any scenario around the globe. Kids are going to find ways to be kids. Right. There's always a silver lining. There's always a way to make the best of a situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, that's exactly what you guys were doing.
We just like, oh, okay. You know, I mean, it was really, that was fun. That was on the, when we were on the compound, my mom being the nurse, I couldn't get away with stuff.
Unless you were flying a kite in a typhoon.
There's some things that we got away with. Maybe I did. I don't know. Anyway, she was the nurse on the compound, and part of her job was she would just wander around and just talk to people and how are you doing? And like, so it wasn't even just in her little clinic. It was just visiting and ministering, being out in the community and connecting with people. So I remember, I hated needles.
Me too.
And we had to have all the shots. We had to have blood tests every year.
Yeah.
We had to, all this stuff, right?
Oof. And not good if you don't like needles.
But my mom was the nurse.
Yeah.
So
there was no skirting around
it. I couldn't get it right. So one of them that I remember is we were going to do the hepatitis B.
Oh, yeah.
You know? There's no drug users and all this stuff, right?
No.
What hepatitis B is for. But anyway, she goes, okay, you're going to take a blood test and you're going to decide if you need this or not.
Okay.
Right. And so you might have to have 4 shots because there's 3 in the series. If you have this, or if you take the blood test and it says that you don't need it, then you only have the 1.
Oh,
is how they
brilliant.
describe it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. So I did the blood test, and then I was so mad when I had to have the series.
You still had to do the series?
I still had to do the series.
Why?
So they did 2 of the tests of the things, and I'm like, this is, whatever. I wasn't cussing or anything back then, right?
Yeah.
But occasionally I do. But it was like, I don't like this, So they had this structure that was behind our house. It was out in the field, and it was built, and it would store all the wood for the construction projects on the whole compound.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So I hid in there.
Yeah.
With my friends the entire day of that 3rd shot. And I got 11 wasp stings.
Oh, no, man.
Instead.
Oh, that's terrible. That's so bad.
Isn't it? I know, but I'm like, I think it was worth it.
Yeah. Well, and did you end up having to get the third shot on top of it anyways?
No.
No. Oh, so
no,
you
they
got
were done with
they
the
were done.
series. They
Oh
had
my
to ship
gosh.
other things back or whatever. You know, I got away with it.
You got away with it.
I
Well,
did.
So you could have had the one blood test and the one shot. So two needle experiences. Or you get the test, there's one, the three in the series, 4 in the series.
So no, you take the blood test.
Yeah.
And you don't need any of them.
Oh, and you wouldn't have needed any of them.
It would
so you
have
could have
been
just one. You
or
ended up getting,
if the blood test shows up that I need the series, then I need 3.
and you ended up getting 2, missed the third.
Yes, I ran away.
You traded it in for the oh man,
I ran away.
Oh, but wasps are so pleasant. I mean,
I still like,
but at least you got
those little red spots, right? Because they were like little red. They were small wasps.
Yeah.
Little red spots all over. I counted them 11.
11.
and I think my mom was like, she learned her lesson, you know, right? But so that was there. So in 6th grade, so in 5th grade, my mom had her breast cancer, right?
And I take it treatment went well.
She had a mastectomy.
Okay.
And while we were in the Philippines, and there's so many funny stories. Oh gosh. So then in 6th grade, we go back and to the States.
Oh.
And we're here for the first half of the year.
Okay.
And we were in California. And so she was getting chemo, treatment, radiation, all the things.
Yeah.
And we didn't have much money.
Okay.
So we were below the poverty line in the US, even though we were not as extravagant as other missionaries in the Philippines because we didn't go with an organization.
Okay.
So when people stopped supporting us, like, you know, they have to fix a car or whatever, they didn't send out the check to us that they had promised. The mission organization would fill that back up. So then that way it wouldn't create turmoil for the missionary family.
Yeah.
For us, we didn't go with that covering. We didn't really want all the rules and all the things and the thing, right?
Yeah.
So we were at this lower rate, and a hospital in Duarte called the City of Hope. A bunch of celebrities raised all this money for people who are lower income to be able to get treatment, and so that's essentially what my mom got
utilized. Yeah.
And you know, we talk about how grateful we were and, you know, all this stuff that they had done this and how God provided.
Yeah.
And so mom being sick, you know, with her chemo treatments, I'm remembering that she had her mastectomy. I have memories of her scars opening up, and I'm helping her in 6th grade nursing her wounds.
Oh my gosh.
And then she had a tummy tuck. And so it was right-sided breast cancer.
Yeah.
She had a tummy tuck where they cut across her belly, took all that flab.
Yeah.
Both of my parents were overweight. There was a good amount that she could have grabbed.
Yeah.
And they moved it up. Right.
Oh, okay.
And so she had scars all the way around. Scar down the middle from the first initial mastectomy.
Yeah.
Scars all the way across her belly, puckering on the side because it wasn't like smoothly done. A brand new belly button that they created. And then, of course, my mom's a nurse, right? So she's like, "You want to see?" Like, she's just like, it wasn't. I'm like, "Mom, stop that!" And she goes, "That's my stomach," you know?
Right?
Like,
no shame.
No shame.
Yeah.
So we were going through that and the treatment and stuff. And then being in the States was like,
that had to be a hard transition.
Oh my gosh. In the middle of all of that, like my classmates, like, "Do you know what net shirts are?" I'm like, "No." Like, "Do you know what Guess jeans are?" No.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh my God. You don't even know what these things are." Right. Like they're just,
well, the
Valley Girl
what your
days.
focus is and the importance of things that you place. It totally.
I had hand-me-downs.
Right.
You know, I was the youngest cousin.
Yeah.
I had the old, out-of-date stuff.
Right. And it didn't matter in the Philippines.
No.
But
it
in
was
the
new
States,
clothes. That was exciting.
Right. You're excited. Yeah. In the States, you don't have the latest designer cool thing that everybody's talking about.
You don't have it.
Yeah.
And so it was really that was challenging. And it was challenging because I felt like I was at home in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And I still struggled with friends and stuff. I think each year things were getting better. But I never really felt like I fit in anywhere.
Right.
And so the middle of 6th grade year, we moved back. And now actually that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if our shipment came during the volcanic thing, because we had the scooters in 6th grade and then they moved back. So maybe there was 2 different shipments. Okay.
Yeah.
So, so we went back there,
which had to feel good.
Yeah. But it was also in the middle of the year.
Yep.
And that was junior high in the Philippines.
Yeah.
6th grade.
Yeah.
So it was again, very like seeing my friends again, but also still just really not fitting in.
Right.
And, so, and that was a hard year. I mean, there was a point where I was not to where I came up with a plan, but I was despairing of life. I wanted to end it.
Yeah.
But I didn't really know how, and I didn't really, you know what I mean? So it was just despair.
Yeah. Just that, is it ever going to get better?
And
what's going on?
And the story I would tell myself frequently is at that time I was suicidal, but it was like, I don't know if I really knew what that meant, you know?
Right.
I had a birthday and some of my classmates, I mean, I was annoying, right? Like no social skills. Like, I mean, and I don't know who did at that,
right.
with
Nobody
all the
does.
things that we experienced too.
Yeah.
But it was just like, hey, my birthday's on Friday, or my birthday's on Saturday. My birthday's on Saturday. My birthday's tomorrow. My birthday's tomorrow. And finally, like one of the girls goes like, who cares about your birthday?
Oh.
And it was like,
yeah.
right. But we got to go to the, at the Manila hotel, had water slides and so. I mean, this is like people that had money or who were visiting the Philippines paid to go there, and like, you know, they had a special kind of dancing that they did with the bamboo called tininkling, and you go do da, 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 da,
that's so
and then
cool.
you had to like dance between the bamboo before it smashes your legs, you know.
Fun.
But you had to do it elegantly.
Oh yeah. And
so they did all of those things, and so it was like, well, this will be okay, you know, we're going and doing this. But then, you know, again, each year did get better.
Yeah.
But that was a hard year. 7th grade, we and I don't know which year was which. Okay, so we were there with Mount Pinatubo, and then we were there for the Baguio earthquake.
Oh.
And Baguio was further north.
Okay.
And we were visiting, and there was this was before the bases left. So Mount Pinatubo, I think it was Clark Air Force Base that got destroyed with the Mount Pinatubo. Yeah. And then with the Baguio earthquake, that was still a U.S. base that was there. We were inside the hotel, and we were going up and down the elevators, because they didn't have elevators. And we were so excited as kids. Like, let's go up and down the elevators. This is so much fun.
Yeah. You were in the elevator when it hit?
Well, no.
Oh, geez.
So we were up and down. My mom, like, very intuitive.
Yeah.
She was grieving, and she was looking around at all these people. And again, as a missionary, she's just like, I just want to tell these people about Jesus.
Yeah.
And she kept having, because they would build their houses on the sides of these cliffs and stuff too. And she was like, what if there was an earthquake? And it never went away.
Oh, no.
What if there was an earthquake? And she felt it.
Yeah.
That it was going to be 2 weeks later, when we were back at home, that hotel sunk underground.
No way.
It did.
Holy cows. Wow. That's wild.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. Talk about intuition and timing and
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Protection big
Yeah,
time
for
too,
sure.
but all of it, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
guess, some people could argue, well, it wasn't protection for the people that were there,
Oh,
right? But to have that feeling and to recognize it.
Yep. It's huge.
So I don't remember what year that was.
Okay.
Okay.
But somewhere in your middle school years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. One of those.
Maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. It was a Manila year.
Yeah.
It was a Manila year.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So 7th grade, we went to, my dad had racked up all these air miles because of all the travel.
Yeah.
And he was part of the Red Carpet Club. And my dad had like amazing charisma.
It sounds like he did. Yeah.
He did. I did not get that gift.
I don't know.
I don't know. He would go up to like, and maybe because he was red carpet or something, I don't know. But he would like talk to the flight attendants and be like, "Do you have any upgrades?"
Yeah.
And they were like, "Okay, your whole family can go business class or whatever," and like not even charge him, right? Like, or he would or whatever. Like it would happen frequently. The first time I had caviar was in business class because my dad got an upgrade, right?
Fancy.
My brother told me it was baby grapes and it tasted terrible.
Those do not taste like baby grapes.
No, it was awful.
A little fishy.
And so anyway, like, yeah, so he had fabulous charisma. So
yeah.
In the Philippines, I mean, he was racking up all these air miles and we got enough to be able to go on a trip.
Cool.
And so for our family vacation, we went to Hong Kong.
Oh.
And we smuggled Bibles into China.
Yep.
And my dad preached. Too.
Oh my gosh. Did that ever cause any fear in you? Like just knowing, okay, we're skirting the law here. But then there's also that, but this is the right thing to do.
So I think this is probably a good time for a break from our sponsors.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Absolutely. Yep. All right, folks.
And then we'll pick that back up.
We'll be back. Okay. So where were we before please.
The break from the sponsors.
Yeah. Break from the sponsors.
Okay. So smuggling Bibles into China.
Yes. Smuggling Bible. Yeah. I asked. Yeah. How did you deal with that? Was that uncomfortable? Was that, what was that like for you?
So I was in 7th grade and I was a very skinny kid.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. And so they knew that one of the things that they would do they would hide. I'm like, I don't want to get the strategy. They would hide the Bibles in suitcases, but also they would carry them around.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they had these little pouches that they carry them in.
Yeah.
And I'm a criminal, you know. So they knew looking at me, they're like, there's no way because you're too skinny.
Right.
They're going to know. So I was nervous because again, I'm very honest.
Oh yeah.
And you can see it on my face.
Uh-huh.
I cannot, we play cards or whatever.
Oh yeah. There's no fibbing. There's no lying.
Nope. You know it.
Yep.
And my face would crack. It couldn't. And they're like, you cannot say anything and you cannot give it away.
Yeah.
And
Poker
they knew
face.
I was like, I was the weak link, in the whole thing.
Oh no.
So I got a book. I loved to read
Mm-hmm.
and I loved to read juvenile fiction. And it was probably like lower grade than where I was at as far as my reading. But,
But reading's the key. You're reading.
I'm reading.
Yeah.
Juvenile fiction, you get right into the action.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of description or fluff or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's my kind of book.
Yeah, that's good.
So I would read juvenile fiction. So there was a book that I got and it's called Mom, There's a Pig in My Bed. And it's about seeing eye pigs for people who are allergic to dogs.
Cool. I didn't even know that existed.
And it was, I don't even know if it does anyway, but it was the story, right? This guy that, he was kind of a wacky inventor and he decided he was going to raise pigs for
seeing eye pigs.
Yeah.
That's so good.
So I had my face in the book the entire time we went through customs.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, from Hong Kong to China. But we stayed in a really cool place. It was the Conrad Hotel. It was a 5-star hotel.
Oh yeah.
Like we actually got to, I mean, this was crazy for us because again, poor mentality constantly, right? We don't have a whole lot.
Yeah.
And we got to stay there and they had a big giant bath with like real bubbles that actually worked. And then they would make the towels, right? Like into animals and things, you know, on the beds.
Cool.
And it was just like the coolest thing. But the other cool thing about the hotel was that on one of the floors, and I think maybe it was like the 3rd floor or something, you go down and there's a mall attached.
Oh.
So you go down to that floor and now you have like this whole mall that you can go to.
Yeah.
And then there's another section of the mall that crosses the street, the skywalk that goes to another thing.
All big and fancy.
My brother and I, like, you know, he's older, right?
Yeah.
So we could just go all over the mall and my parents just let us like in Hong Kong, like go kids, play.
Yeah, have fun.
And have fun.
Yeah.
And so we would, I mean, as long as we were together, we were okay. And so then we had this, the whole trip was about 10 days.
Oh, cool.
I think 2 or 3 of those days were in China.
Yep.
And so we went, that was actually the year that Cliffhanger came out.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
this is like
Sylvester Stallone.
95, somewhere in the 90s.
Yeah.
Mid 90s.
Yeah, in the 90s. So we actually saw it there.
Oh yeah. That's a cool memory.
With Chinese subtitles on the bottom.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like, you know.
Yep.
And yeah, so I mean, it was the coolest vacation that we got to do that.
Yeah.
And I will say this one thing, because I will get to the smuggling and the Bibles and all that stuff. But one of the things that I learned from my family and my dad was how prayer works.
Okay, do tell.
My dad believed in the power of prayer. When I was a child, I was 3 years old. My dad would throw a blanket over his head, one of those brown 1970s blankets that was woven. Okay.
Yeah.
And he would throw that over his head and he would pace back and forth praying, wake up at 5 a.m. or so. He would pace back and forth praying in the family room. And I would walk up to him and I would pat his legs.
Yeah.
And he would pick me up underneath the blanket and we would pace back and forth. And it was like, you know, just the power of prayer. I mean, he actually, unfortunately, I don't have it. With all the moves, I've lost his tapes, but he had a seminar in prayer. He would talk about praying for people being raised from the dead. I mean, all these amazing miracles that he got to see and experience. Right. And so he would teach us. And there was one story actually he told before he got married. And he was like, kids, you know, God answers prayer. And one time, you know, before I met your mom, I was running out of toilet paper and I told God I couldn't afford it. And God, I need toilet paper. And he goes, and then the neighbor rang the doorbell and was like, I don't know why, but I feel like I'm supposed to give this to you. And he gives him toilet paper.
Isn't that
right?
cool?
Like, okay. So I'm hearing all these stories all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So in this one that meant so much to me was when we were on that vacation, there was a water park. And in the Philippines, we didn't have like water parks.
No.
Right?
No, you got typhoons. That was your water park.
Absolutely. Exactly. We slid. We created slip and slides out of the oh my gosh. Now that you're saying that, I forgot about that. Yeah.
See,
our basement would flood and we would
situation.
swim in the basement, you know, and
yeah.
Early years.
Built-in swimming pool. Who knew?
Absolutely. It was great. So like, but to have a real water park was like new.
Yeah.
And you know, they had the Shamu and all the thing, right? So it was like a real water park.
Yeah.
But it was raining that entire time. You know?
Yeah.
The weather was rain.
Yeah.
And so he says, kids, on this day, we're going to go to the water park. But today we're going to pray. And God's going to change the weather.
Cool.
So then that way we can go to the water park.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, Dad, you know, whatever, right? Like we're going to pray for clear weather so we can go to the water park.
Yep.
Because you know what? God loves his kids.
Yep.
And going and experiencing the water park would delight our souls, right? Like, it's just like, okay, so he's going to change the weather and we're going to go.
Yeah.
There was no rain that day. We went to the water park. And I don't remember anything about the water park, but the one thing that I do remember is when we were walking back to the bus to go back to the hotel, we felt the first drops of rain.
No way.
And it rained the entire time since.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
I mean, look at the power of prayer. There
Seriously.
That is
it's
so
just
cool.
and prayer and faith, like knowing, like it's gonna clear up. So I actually have like a pretty strong faith, especially when it comes to weather.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes like having your sense of faith, it needs to be in different areas, right? Like I had a poverty mentality, right?
I was gonna say, right.
So it's a different thing for me to be like, and God's going to provide or whatever, right? Even though that happened for us each time as a kid. So I know that that would happen.
Right.
But what we experienced was, you know, God answers at the 11th hour. And so it's like, I'm like, can we not have the panic, please?
Yeah.
You know, like, right. So like developing my faith for that. Right. Is a new thing.
Yeah.
And so, but with that, I knew like, okay, so that implanted in my head. Right.
Yeah. Well, it just stacks. It builds that testimony. It builds the proof positive that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we were. We went to China.
Yeah.
We smuggled the Bibles in China. I got my reading in about the seeing eye
I
of
was
pigs.
going to say, yeah.
And just a really, really cool adventure. The guy who set us up with that, I think this was after we got back, saw a magazine and he was on the cover and it told his story. And he had been thrown in prison in China for the 11th time for smuggling Bibles into China.
Oh my gosh.
And we went as a family, right? And it was just, you know, it always just goes, well, God protected us, you know, or whatever. And it's, I don't know that I could, you know, my husband has a daughter, right? And I've got grandkids and stuff. I'm like, if they were, I'm like, I don't know, to bring your kids into that.
Yeah.
But I learned faith.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And we got to see it.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of hard times, but we saw this other side.
Right.
Too. So that was, so 7th grade.
Well, and let me just add on to that really quick.
Yeah.
If it was always good, then those moments don't stand out. Right? It's exercising your faith. It's praying. It's believing. It's knowing that that blessing is coming despite all of the evidence to the contrary.
Yeah.
Because if all the evidence said, it's been nice, it's going to be nice the day that we go to the water park, or nobody ever gets arrested for smuggling Bibles in, or whatever the thing is.
Right.
Well, that's just normal. Right? There's no faith building there. There's no evidence of.
Yeah.
So yeah, does it have to be uncomfortable? Well, yeah, because that's kind of that's how you see the offset.
I mean, the challenge is also because, you know, I mean, that's what they would talk about, is like God would protect us and blah, blah, blah. Like, well, he didn't protect my teacher.
Right.
Right. Like he didn't protect my friend's mom or like, right. So I keep feeling like this is falling off, but maybe it's not. So I don't know.
Right.
It happened. I mean, I'm protected every day.
Yeah.
When we're driving at massive speeds, like with just a tiny line between us, both ways, right? And you go, oh, that stinks when there's an accident.
Right.
But then how come more don't happen?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's a different, like trying to see from a bigger picture of those things and to just be grateful.
Yeah.
But, you know, I didn't come out completely unscathed.
Right.
You know, I lost my parents.
Okay. So I was curious. What does that look like? You
didn't know that.
No.
That's a teaser.
Yeah. Yeah.
So 8th grade, you know, a little bit better. That was the best year to the time.
Yeah.
My brother was graduating high school.
Yeah.
And so it was like, this is what I appreciate, because I'm like, I've listened to other missionary kids tell their stories, and they're put in boarding school, and a lot of them have experienced abuse and other stuff like that. Right.
Yep.
That wasn't my experience. Thankfully, my parents knew that they wanted to keep us together. Yeah. And they created, my dad, he was a workaholic. He poured into being, it's easier to do when you're doing it for Jesus, right? Like, it's your faith calling, right?
Yeah.
And, but he worked from home.
Yeah.
And so anytime I wanted to, I would, if I wanted to go in there and just like, hey, daddy, sit on his lap while we were working on something or whatever, give him he would have me make him iced tea all the time. He had a particular type of iced tea that he liked. And then I would make it for him and bring. So he was there.
Yeah.
And they knew when my brother was graduating, we are staying together as a family.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, the parents would stay and they would send their kids alone back to the States to go to college.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That wasn't our experience. So we knew that we were going to all be done with the Philippines at that time. And this is actually good. I'm getting all these memories that are just kind of flooding back, right? As we're talking about this. So we lived, I'll pause for a second and say, during those years, there was a lot of brownouts, a power outage.
Yep.
One year, a python got into the electrical equipment I don't remember if it was the water pump or because we would have typhoon season and then we would have, so rainy season, we have dry season. So we have to put big, giant, like 50-gallon water jugs.
Yeah.
I
Barrels.
think it's 50 gallons out. It's like a big trash can, right?
Yeah.
And we would put those out. We would collect water. Yeah. In the mornings, we would collect water, and then we would do bucket showers.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. The other thing is when the power would go out. So this was quite common in the Philippines. I mean, I remember listening to somebody else and they're like, oh, we stayed at this place. It was really nice. They had marble stairs. And I'm like, our whole house was marble, marble and wood. That was before wood was popular here. Right.
Yeah.
So, but because it was so hot, right. And the mold would grow, right. You couldn't have carpet, over there.
No.
So, but during the brownouts, we were all flat on our backs on the marble floor.
Yeah, staying cool.
Because it was so hot.
Yeah.
So I had mentioned that my cousin had won a radio show.
Right.
And he won $1,000. And he gave it to us.
Oh, wow.
Cool kid, right?
Yeah.
So cool.
Cool cousin.
So we ended up buying a couple of generators, like big generators.
Yeah.
And so we were able to keep things going. And that was really cool. Although from a kid's perspective, I missed the brownouts because we would sit together as a family.
Yeah.
We would have candles.
Yeah.
And we would laugh and we would talk.
Yeah. And
it was quiet. The walls were quiet. Everything was quiet. We would tell stories. At one point I had a wart that was like so I was heating up a paper clip and like burning off my wart, it's kind of gross. But anyway, that was part of the brownouts. And so we would all be together as a family because there was nothing to do. The power was out.
Yeah. I love when the power goes out because to your point, candles, family that gathers together. The quiet is
so quiet.
So quiet. And then you play games, you talk, you spend time with each other because there's no other distractions.
There's nothing. And I remember because we would all have candles. So it was like, try to cool down. So you'd bring the candle in and have a bucket shower. So it's like all dark with the candle, right? People do that for ambiance. And that was just our experience, the reality.
Yeah.
So when we got the generators, I think I had friends that liked coming over to our house too, because they knew that they would have aircon.
Yeah.
They call it aircon back then instead of air conditioning.
Aircon, yeah.
Makes sense.
Makes sense.
And so then, and then when the power was on and we had the air conditioning because everybody else had no power, like everybody was working house. And they were all like in the different corners of their house. So we weren't there together anymore. So I did really like some of my fondest memories was actually not having power.
Brownouts, yeah.
Or we were going to have our water turned off and it would be rainy season. And so we'd have the buckets outside, but we would shower like with our swimsuits on.
Yeah.
I mean, in our walled area of our house. Right. Yeah. But Dad and my brother and I going, okay, we're going to go bathe outside in the middle of the rain. And
why not?
And let's do that. So those were some of the, like the happiest times for me. But when I was in 8th grade, so I will backtrack again and say this. One of the things that my dad did as an entertainer and having his shows and stuff, he created his own musical.
Cool.
And we had traveled a couple times. So he had done the play. He rewrote it. So, because if it's too happy ending, then, the plot is all wrapped up and everything. It's like life is not that way.
Right.
So it was a story of reconciliation because his ministry shifted. We had branched out from Far East Broadcasting Company when we moved off of the compound, and he started his own ministry called the Ministry of Reconciliation.
Okay.
M-O-R-E, more.
Yeah.
People would say more, but he would say M-O-R-E. And his thing was never, 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 never give up on reconciliation.
Mm. I
see that, but I also think that there are times that you do walk away.
Okay. And what do you mean by that?
From my perspective?
Yeah. What is reconciliation? What does sometimes walking away look like?
I think that, so my dad was absolutely devastated when his parents had divorced.
Mm, yeah.
And his father had been diagnosed with extreme paranoia.
Oh.
And was a very difficult guy.
Yeah.
And for many years, my dad had prayed for my grandpa's heart to soften, very bitter man, just for healing.
Yeah.
In the Philippines, it's a save face culture.
Okay. Makes sense.
So we actually had some friends that moved there after we left. And he was telling a story about how he just had this feeling like something was off. And he asked somebody to look into it. I don't know, a private investigator or something to look into it. And one of the neighbors he didn't know had been offended by him and put out a contract for his life.
No way. Jeez.
So it was so strong. Like, you do not offend people.
Right. You say face.
You say, right. And you help them save face, or how do you interact? But the other thing is it can be very passive aggressive and not, I can't tell you.
Right. That honesty, that openness
it's
of
not
communication
as
and respect.
Honest and all of that. Right. So it was like read between the lines or whatever. Right. So again, the sweetest people ever.
Right.
Totally sweet. Like,
yeah.
Love the Philippines, love the Filipino people. But there was a lot of bitterness.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm going to hold that till the day I die.
Yeah.
And my dad would say, you're a Christian. Yes, you're Filipino. But this aspect of the culture goes against the gospel, against Jesus's teachings.
Yep.
Right? That you need to forgive.
Right. It's very not turn the other cheek.
Right.
Sort of mentality. Yeah.
Right. So you need to let that go and have forgiveness in your heart. And so, I see that is so important.
Yeah.
I have made an effort through my life to really make sure that my heart is clean and clear.
Yeah.
Was the scripture, out of the heart is the issues of life, right? Like, it's like, it's, can I keep a pure heart?
Yeah.
And, honesty, but also like, one of the things that I'll say frequently is like marriage exists between your ears. Any relationship exists between your ears. So how are you thinking about that other person?
Yeah.
Right. Also matters too.
Right.
So I learned that from my parents.
Yeah.
My dad, in the entertainment industry, and doing the musical and connecting and stuff like that. He ministered and connected and worked with a lot of the Filipino celebrities.
Okay. Yep.
So, Gary Valenciano, Michael Jackson of the Philippines, like cool dancing, all this stuff. I was so bummed he came out to the US and I missed it. And that turned out to be his last concert. And I'm
no.
like, I was going to go. And then I just, whatever. But I don't even remember what happened. But the Elvis Presley of the Philippines, Eddie Mesa, ministered with my dad. They were buddies.
Cool.
His wife was a former soap opera star and other stuff, right? So like we had the connection. So one of the things in the Philippines, when we're on the out of the compound, but in the new place, right? Our house is near the guards. Like they would come over to our house and then, we would see like the guards like peering through the gate, trying to like take a peek at the celebrities. Right.
Yeah.
So, so it was really weird because I didn't fit in with my friends.
Right. Yeah. You've got, because of that, you've got an extra level of celebrity.
Well, no, just because I was an awkward kid. Right.
Okay. All right.
So I didn't fit in with my friends.
Yeah.
Or my school group. I felt like I was bullied.
Yeah.
7th grade, I was shoved into a locker. I mean, there was like, right. So that was that struggle.
Kids are the worst.
They're terrible. And then it's like, you see the movie Galaxy Quest.
Yeah.
And the one alien that was like, oh, and he's injured.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, they're so cute. And Sigourney Weaver is just like, oh, look. And she wants to help the injured one. They're like, no, hang back. And then all the other ones are
eat it.
They go and they eat it like little cannibals.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's
kids.
junior high.
Yeah, that's totally junior high. 100%. Oh, there's something off. We can take advantage.
There's something, right?
Yeah.
So like, don't show your weakness. So anyway, I couldn't hide it. So I realized I wasn't the most picked on. I realized later in my adulthood, but I, certainly when you're there, you feel it like you're the only one. Right?
Oh, yeah.
But, gosh, that was a fun little side. So Dad, we had that, right? So then there was the celebrities and then there was just being white.
Right.
In the Philippines. I was blonde haired.
Oh,
so everybody wanted to touch my hair. They wanted full on painful pinch my cheeks, right?
Yeah. You're a novelty.
I was a novelty.
Yep.
And they're shorter.
Yep.
And so I looked older. So when I was 12, they would think I was 16. So I had men that would be serenading because that's part of their culture is that they're wooing you. They sing to you.
Yeah.
So like walking by and then all of a sudden having somebody go, beautiful girl, wherever you are, I knew when I saw you, like singing this song. And we would get so embarrassed. We're like, no, stop, and run away,
Yeah.
But they would think that I was older.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah.
So there was like this weird dynamic that happened. I'm like, in one world, I was like the bottom of the totem pole. And then another one, I'm a novelty. And right. So that was really interesting. So my dad had this ministry, and he was working on his musical too. And then in 8th grade, in March, in 8th grade, March 2nd, I believe, I had a horrible day. And actually, I don't remember the first day, but I came home. I was at a youth group and was coming around the corner past the guards and coming down. It was in the evening and I got to stay after school.
Yeah.
And I came home. And I saw the maroon Mitsubishi, which I remember the car so well because we had the floods and stuff. There were holes that had rotted. It was cockroach infested. I mean, like it was its own character.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The car. So the maroon Mitsubishi driving off when I got home late at night.
Yeah.
Mom was driving.
Oh.
And it was like, why is mom driving?
Yeah. Why is she leaving? Why
is she leaving? So I rang the doorbell And one of the things that we would do is we would want to see who came. And so we had that big giant gate and that big metal gate and the walls, right?
Yep.
And so the lock, which is huge.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so as kids, it was so much fun. We would climb up on top of the lock and peek our head over the gate to see who's here.
Right.
Right. And so I ring the doorbell, or pound it. I don't remember how we did it, but I should ask my brother. So he peeks his head over the gate.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah. Something's up.
Mom was driving.
Right.
What's happening? My dad was having a heart attack.
Holy smokes.
And so he was there and his left arm had gotten numb.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, honey, I love you. I love you. Chris, I love you. Tell Sherry I love her. Tell Sherry I love her.
Oh my gosh.
And my mom was like, Steve, we are not doing this.
Nope.
You are going to the hospital now.
Right.
So I was talking to my brother and he goes, well, come on inside. So I painted the whole picture. I painted the whole picture of the gates because I knew that this was an essential part of the story, right?
Yeah.
The maroon gate. So I came around and went into the other side to get there. And so he had a heart attack.
Yeah. And
they revived him and he was in a hospital for a week. And so I had that gut feeling that something is not right.
Yeah.
And so I told my classmates over and over again, pray for my dad. We'd have Bible classes and stuff like pray for my dad, pray for my dad. He's in the hospital. And my friends were like, it's no big deal. My dad was in the hospital. What's your problem? Blah, blah, blah. Right.
Right.
But I knew.
But you knew.
I knew something was wrong. So on March 7th, 1995, so this is 95, my mom had cancer, 6th grade. That was 92. And then 95. All day long, I had scenes from the movie Ghost of when Patrick Swayze died and she was screaming and crying over his body.
Yeah.
And it was flashing in my head.
Yeah.
Over and over again. Friends saying terrible things, completely heartbroken, just awful day. And I wrote down all these things. I was so frustrated and I was just on the bus, just tearing. I stayed after school, which was always fun because we'd run around barefoot all the time.
Yeah.
They call us chicken. Like, chicken, put some slippers on. And so I'm like crying on the bus.
Yeah.
Tearing this stuff up. And so when I got home, we were there and my mom came home with the groceries and stuff. And my dad was going to have an angiogram. Okay. And they were going to release him the next day.
Yeah.
Or that day, I think. I don't remember. And the next day. And they were going to do the angiogram first to see before they released him. And so she came home. Now, he had been in the hospital and we had gone and visited him multiple times. And in there, cuddling up to him, he had extra fluid in his legs.
Yeah.
And we had to test to see the level of fluid that was coming out of his body.
Yeah.
And so, as a kid, I'm like pouring dad's urine into a cup to be able to see like how much is there.
Right.
And helping out with that. And so I don't know how I heard this, but I said, Dad, one time I heard about people that would have wedding vows that is like a contract that's like, we'll renew in 5 years.
Oh.
And he goes, okay. And I said, I'm not going to have to say those, am I? And he says, honey, not as long as I'm performing your wedding ceremony.
Oh.
And I said, well, then you make sure that you're okay, Dad.
Yeah.
So he was going to be the one because
Yeah.
he's the minister, right?
Yeah.
And it's always special to have somebody that family member that's doing that officiating. And so, but I just still didn't have that, still didn't quite feel right.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that they played things down. So they thought that he had double pneumonia that had caused the heart attack or something. One caused the other. They weren't really sure.
Yeah.
And so he had the angiogram. Mom came home with the groceries and was talking to us about what happened, and the phone rang. And I answered it. We had the on the wall with a big long cord, right? White phone, pick that up.
Classic.
And I answer. And the guy goes, Sue? And I go, no, this is her daughter, Sherry. I don't go by Sherry. I go by Sherilyn, but Sherry was my kid name.
Right.
Right. So he says, I need to speak to Sue. This is Dr. So-and-so from St. Luke's Hospital. Okay. I go, Mom, it's the doctor. And she just started bawling completely.
Oh, no.
And it was like, what's happening? What's happening? She goes, Chris, get the car. And so we were heading to the hospital, and she's like, your dad had a cardiac arrest. And I said, what is it? What is it? Because I didn't know. Like, what is it? So we're driving. He's got the lights flashing the whole way.
Yeah.
The traffic in the Philippines was terrible. So one of the things is, if one lane stops, you've got two. One lane stops, they go to the next, and then they eventually drive into the opposite side until there's only one lane on the opposite side, and everybody is completely at a standstill.
Brilliant. Great way to do traffic.
So, and it was like, man, you're driving two buses, like they had lanes, but they didn't follow it. Two buses want to go there where you are. You have to slam on your brakes to back up to make sure you don't die. You know?
Yeah.
Right. So that was the traffic. It was very offensive. Wait, defensive driving.
Yeah, a lot of
defensive.
Yeah.
So my brother, like, he learned how to drive in the Philippines, and he was a very good defensive driver, right?
Yeah.
So get the car. So Chris is going. We're all bawling. The lights are just flashing. People on the back of these jeepneys, which were like old military jeeps that were extended. So they used them for all the people would hang on the back and stuff.
Right.
And they're all looking at us, and we're just like, they're looking at all these white people who have tears flashing and honking the horn and going. And, you know, I mean, like, they had ambulances, but nobody pulled over. I mean, it didn't meet.
Right. They were still, they were focused on themselves.
Right. So there was no rule for that. And so we're honking and stuff, and we get there. And Chris parks the car when my mom and I get there. And they stop us and tell us some things beforehand, that they had tried to revive him for over an hour.
Oh my gosh.
And so we go in there, and that was not my dad.
No.
It was not my dad.
Yeah.
And later on, my brother comes into the room, yells dad, slams the door, and runs out. I was maybe 3-4 years ago. My brother finally asked me what happened when you got to the hospital. I was like, you didn't even know, Chris?
Yeah.
Did they say anything to you? Yeah. They never said anything to my brother. Oh. He was not stopped. He was not prepared. He was nothing. He just went out of the hospital, and he punched something, and he broke something in the hospital. He was so upset.
Oh, no.
So a lot of daddy come back.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then we left, and we were leaving the hallway, and one of the folks from the ministry came, and they had flowers to come and visit my dad. They didn't know. And they saw us crying. And then we all started crying.
Yeah.
And then they wheeled my dad past us with the sheet over him. And in that moment, because my dad was writing his story, his book.
Yeah.
And it was really weird in that moment that I was like, oh, who's gonna write Dad's story?
Oh.
And then I was like, well, I am.
Yeah.
And that was a hard year. We finished the rest of the year. That was March. He passed away March 7th. I turned 14 March 27th.
Oh.
I was in band because we were done. My dad had been gone twice a year, 2 months at a time, raising support to be there in the Philippines.
Yeah.
Financial support. He always missed my band concerts.
Yeah.
And that was going to be the one band concert he was going to make. And he missed it because he passed away. And, so we went, you didn't realize you were going to get such a, like so many ups and downs and stuff in the story.
That is life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my friends in 8th grade had no idea. And the teachers had no idea, how do you deal with a grieving child?
Right.
Because a lot of them were young. You know, they were young and adventurous when they left to go like teach and be in the Philippines.
Right.
Right. So we were finishing out my brother's year.
Yep.
And I would cry and leave classes. I mean, the day that I was gone for 10, 11 days, my aunt and uncles, I had 2 aunts and 2 uncles, right? And they married to each other, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They came out and stayed with us for 2 weeks. And so we, you know, multiple days that we weren't at school, just kind of processing. And when I went to go get my assignments and we were on campus for the first time, all my classmates all just like hovered around us. And I could not handle being this picked on kid that nobody really liked and whatever. All of a sudden, all this attention from around. So I just told jokes.
Oh.
And they were like, your dad died? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, you're telling jokes and stuff, right? But I was deflecting the attention,
it's the, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
I've talked to some of my classmates about that and they're like, I remember that. I'm like, yeah, I didn't know what to do.
Well, what do you do?
Yeah.
Well, because we have such a weird concept of time and like my person, it sounds like your dad, you guys had a great relationship. Daddy's little girl?
I was daddy's little girl. I mean, he was busy. He was gone a lot. He did have, my dad still had some anger, you know, from what he was raised with. And I think he was real broken about that.
Yeah.
He could get very scary.
Okay.
You know, as kids, and you know, he spanked us and stuff too, but it was always, he always was like, it's only 3 times.
Yeah.
You know, he would try to like limit.
That's a good limit.
Limit it, but then he kind of terrorized us before he would spank us. You know, just look with his belt and like, no.
Oh yeah.
Why would you do that?
Yeah.
But yeah, I was daddy's little girl.
Yeah. And,
you know,
and then you think you have years, decades with somebody, right? Because I mean, at that point, he had to be what, mid-40s?
He was 45.
Yeah, he was 45.
He was 45.
Way too young.
Yeah. Yeah, and people would say that all the time. My dad was an old soul. I mean, he loved Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
He was, you know, and I think back then, like in church culture too, that like it was very kind of, the style was always behind the times, you know, so he had like his hair combed over.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't know. Anyway, he was just, but he was real young at heart too, in a lot of ways. And you don't even, there's absolutely no concept. No. I was the first one at, you know, like out of all my classmates and stuff, like even with the teachers, they just like.
Right. Nobody had dealt with the death of a parent yet.
No. I'm like, they were all learning on me.
Right. I was going to say, yeah, lucky you.
So they didn't know how to handle it. And my classmates didn't really like, so they're just all of a sudden, and the thing is, you lose somebody, like you are not the same person.
No.
And part of it is like, what's my identity now?
Right. That's
part of the grief too.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you'd get the whole, well, I know exactly what you're going through because my grandma died or whatever. And I'm like, no, you don't.
No.
Right.
Well, and on top of it, you guys are a close-knit family, right? You were all going to go back to the States for your brother's college, not separate. So there's that unity. You all know how to do life together. You're surviving, really, a different country, a different culture together. You're learning and growing and doing all that together. And now, not only are you missing your dad, but your mom's missing your dad. Your brother's missing your dad. And so you guys, even together, all of it's different.
All of it. All of it. And so, yeah, there was one point where my mom found in my dad's stuff one of, he was part of some Christian business club or Rotary or whatever, and he wrote on one of those flyers that said, death is not the greatest tragedy. The greatest tragedy is allowing the hope to die within you while you live.
Oh, yeah.
And that really stuck with us too.
Yeah.
We had walked through so much stuff. So when my mom had breast cancer, my dad was gone when she found out she had cancer. He was raising support in the Philippines.
Okay.
But he got a ticket, and we were huddling, and I would sleep with my mom all the time because my dad was gone, right? So like we would just sleep together. And I remember falling asleep. My mom didn't even know either. And all of a sudden we hear the door open and says, "Who needs a daddy right now at a time like this?"
Oh.
And he just flew across the country.
Yeah.
Right away to be with us.
So sweet.
And it was so meaningful, right? Like,
yeah,
daddy was the one that was there.
Yeah.
When my mom had cancer and we were there in 6th grade, she had these prosthetic breasts that were, that you fit into bras,
Uh-huh.
and these folks in the States gave a whole bunch of them to give them. I mean, it was sweet. My mom never told them, like, they're all like C and D cups. And so like, yeah, there's not really any Filipinos that are that big,
Yeah.
But so she always had that and would wear it. And so sometimes like there was one that ended up breaking, and we would like take the goo and throw it on the wall. And it was like this whole thing, and running around with these like jiggling fake boobs, and all of this like just craziness and crazy story, and dad being there in the middle of all that. And all the things that we walked through.
Right.
And so it was so different.
Yeah.
And without him there, I mean, in some ways it felt like he was gone raising support again.
Okay. Yeah.
But also knew that he wasn't. And so, again, I was real depressed and real suicidal, and just like, I was grieving.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, I don't know that I didn't fit in. My friends were just like, one gal said to me at one point, like, "I'm tired of your crappy attitude and stuff." She didn't know. And for me, I was really struggling with my schoolwork and my grades. And I had one teacher that gave me 2 extra days to do an assignment. And I was just like, I shouldn't have to do this because I was gone and my dad died, and, all this stuff, right? That I was struggling with. But so it was really disconnected, especially with my friends. So I lost my dad, but then I lost my friends too, because I was different and they didn't know how to handle that.
Right.
So Chris graduated. We came back to the States, and then I went into high school that was like the largest high school. Oh my gosh, it's huge.
Oh, worlds apart from what you had before.
Oh, it was like junior high or bigger. I mean, it was massive.
Yeah.
Massive. And I don't know, like, I would try to tell my husband, Tim, about this. I'm like, I took him to my school, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, you are not kidding me." Like, there were the 2 main, so English and like social studies or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to compare it to. It's massive.
It was just huge.
It was just huge for each of them. They had like, I think 5 or 6 baseball fields and softball fields.
Yeah.
Multiple soccer fields. They had Olympic-sized swimming pools.
And is this North California?
Central California.
Central. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, population's
big.
They have the funds because California loves to tax. So
big time sports.
Big buildings, big sports stuff.
I mean, while we were there, they were working on it. They didn't have it. They eventually ended up building like a big drama, I mean, like it was big.
I mean, it's what some community college campuses are.
Yes.
If not bigger.
Bigger.
Yeah.
I would say. But maybe. I mean, not as big as the community college in Fresno. That one, again,
Right.
population was bigger, but
yeah,
huge.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you probably
here
have
I
at
am
least 1,000 kids per grade.
Oh, I had like 900 kids in my graduate. Like we had to run to get our diploma.
Yeah.
There was no slow walking.
No.
There was, I mean,
you'd be there all day.
And when we graduated, everybody had, so we were red, white, and blue, different colored gowns.
Yeah.
And they would spell out the year with shadows.
Oh my god.
There were that many.
Oh yeah. You went into a totally different world for your high school year.
Totally different.
Which I would imagine could have been blessing and curse, but the blessing is you can kind of get lost now. You can kind of figure you out.
Maybe. I mean, I couldn't fit in.
No, right.
It was like friend group to friend group. Like, I mean, it was really like, and in a foreign country where now all of a sudden I look like everybody, but I don't feel like it.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't know music and I don't know any of those things and I don't really care.
Right.
Right. So that was like really weird shift.
Yeah.
I mean, in the Philippines, we had party lines with our phones. So, you pick up the phone or you're on the phone and somebody's like, they just start talking.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm on the phone, hang up now. Right. Like, I mean, my same age group didn't really have to deal with that. Right. So I was in an older time.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the Philippines.
Yeah. Yeah. When you gave the corded phone on the wall with the long cord, that's yeah, that, because now we're mid 90s to late 90s, and cell phones were starting to show up a little bit. Yeah. They were little brick Nokias.
We got beepers when we were coming, but not in the Philippines. I mean, that was
not in the Philippines,
States.
but in the States, yeah.
But yeah, so it was really, I mean, that was.
Well, you're repatriatizing. What's the word? You're coming back into the States.
I'm acclimating again.
Yeah, reacclimating. You're reacclimating. Yeah, oh man, your high school, so it was.
And I was we didn't have a lot of the local folks, but it was international, and everybody, we all had to be friends.
Yeah.
Even though it was very cliquey
sure.
in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And everybody was vying to be popular.
Oh yeah.
But, and it was like the people who had a glimpse of popularity were the ones who ended up having American candy. So it was like anybody you knew coming visiting. It was like, could you please bring me the firecrackers? That was the thing, was the firecrackers.
The firecrackers, yeah.
So, but in the States, it was like, now all of a sudden everybody's segregated. And we're in Fresno. There's the Hmong groups, there's the black kids, there's the, but right, like the emo punk and the, right, like it's just the drama kids,
right? The band kids.
There's the preppies. Jocks. The preppies were on the stairs, and, right. So, the Christians were over the flagpoles and over the, but it was, I mean, I guess there were different groups there, right?
Yeah.
But and then there was the water polo guys with their green hair, they would all hang out together. Yeah. So it was all split up, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking around, I'm like, I even remember they're like, oh, those are the Hmong kids over there. And I'm like, well, what country?
Yeah.
What country is that?
Right.
Right. So there were things that, again, I'm very interested in people.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's your story? What's your background? What's, where are you from? And in the Philippines, it was always like, even for folks who are American, it was, what state are you from?
Right.
So we just really wanted to dial into a sense of home and connection.
Right.
But it was the Oregon kids were always really cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. But
those Texas kids though.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't mess with Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, but here in the States, it was just, it was so.
It's a different kind of cliquey.
And then how you dress really matters, and all of these other things. And you're trying to study and you're trying to do all this.
Yeah.
I went to a college prep school in the Philippines, but I was behind. So then all of a sudden I'm in the States and they're like, oh, well, you're more advanced.
Oh.
But then I also wasn't, because there were some things that I struggled with. So it was like I had an honors English teacher in 10th grade that didn't recommend that I do
Continue
AP.
on. Yeah.
You know? So, and then the teachers that I was at were like, that's crazy. Like, you're brilliant. And I'm like, no, she said, you know what I mean? It would get drilled in because I struggled with vocabulary. That's why she recommended that I didn't do it. And then the other teacher was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But it's like, there's nothing good that you can tell me after that, because you planted that seed, right? That is like, I'm not enough to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So I just went through regular classes while I was in high school.
Well, and what's the shift like? Because had you always thought, oh, I'm a missionary kid, I'm going to end up doing that with my life? And now are you thinking, oh, I'm back in the States, I just got to get through high school? And then like, what did you think you were going to do to now? What is the focus?
I think, just getting through high school was a big part. You know, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I wanted to go back.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I wanted to,
because at that point it's home. You're familiar with
anything foreign was home.
Yeah.
You know? So like at one point I wanted to go to Greece and I wanted to go to Mexico. And it was just like, where can I live overseas? Because at least when you're over in another, third world type of, or they could say developing world now, but country, they know that you're different.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So then you could just be interested and connect, and it's the materialism isn't there.
Right.
But it was so much of that there, and especially like, I think the school that I went to, it was real strong. So my senior year, my mom's cancer came back.
Oh.
And it came back in her liver.
Oh.
And I took care of her.
Yeah.
And my mom is the sweetest. I had a white Dodge Caravan, and from what is that movie? There's a movie. I forget what it is, but these college kids live together, and it's the women or whatever, and one of them says, like, in this monotone voice, the guys come over, she goes, "Welcome to the maxi pad."
Right? What is that movie? Oh, that's
I forget what it was. Yeah. So the Dodge Caravan I called the maxi pad. And we would all hang out in my car like during lunch and stuff.
Yeah.
I was like the one that drove everybody around.
Yeah.
And so my mom actually let me take our one vehicle to school.
Oh.
So I could drive.
Oh.
And she would stay home.
Yeah.
Isn't that sweet?
It's super sweet.
And but later on, when she came down with cancer, we went to a trip to England and Ireland, and I was 18, and she was complaining about her gut.
Yeah.
And didn't really think anything of it. Was in England, had my first kiss in England.
Oh.
One of my former classmates.
Oh. It's a good romantic spot.
We were flying from England to Ireland, and I don't know, like, Little Mermaid came out 6th grade, so I don't know why my senior year it was playing on the PA when he was singing "Kiss the Girl." And my mom looked at me and she goes, "You kissed him," and I'm like, "Oh, again, intuitive mom." She knew.
She knew.
Well,
in Ireland, is that where the Blarney Stone is?
And then there was the Blarney Stone, but that was England and Ireland. So we went to back to the States after the trip, and that was we went around my birthday, March, April ish. Not long after that, my friend and I come home and she says, "Are my eyes yellow?" To my friend and I.
No.
And we look and we go, "Yeah. What is that?" She goes, "Okay." She was a nurse.
Yep. She's diagnosing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So liver cancer. So we go and we get scanned. My friend from England had purchased a ticket, so I was going to visit there, and then he was going to come to the States.
Yeah.
And so I can't remember if he was visiting at the time or if he came after. But he had already purchased the ticket, so I think maybe we just like kept the trip anyway.
Yeah.
And she says, "Oh, well, good news. There's just spots on the liver."
Yeah.
And I don't know how I knew this, but I said, "Mom, cancer doesn't have to be a tumor. It could be spots."
Right.
And I think she's trying to downplay it, but certainly it was.
Yeah.
And
well, and staying positive, I'm sure she's thinking, I already survived breast cancer. There's a couple spots on my liver. The liver regenerates. You can take those spots out. I'll be fine.
Well, I don't know. I think she was just playing it because liver cancer does tend to go pretty fast.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. So, because your liver detoxifies.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Liver, pancreas too, because cancer feeds on sugar.
Yeah.
Right. So pancreatic is probably the fastest.
Yeah.
Liver's up there.
One of the deadliest.
Yeah.
Certainly.
So she had, so she ended up with cancer, and I took care of her, and I was failing some of my classes. I would come home for lunch. I would make my mom lunch.
Yep.
And in my classes, I was studying for other things, just trying to get my grades up so I can graduate.
Yep.
6 weeks after my mom was diagnosed is when she passed away.
No way.
It was 1 week after my graduation.
Oh my gosh.
We had a special place at the big giant football stadium for the school. Again, big school. That was reserved to where my mom could have a wheelchair and she could be there.
Yeah.
And I was there in my cap and gown. I don't remember which part of the number 1999 I was in, right? But I look up and mom's not there. And I had learned sign language. My brother had learned sign language.
Oh, cool.
So I looked up at him and I said, "Where's mom?"
Yeah.
And he says, "She's home." I said, "Why?" "She's sick."
Yeah.
So I'm thankful that I learned that and my brother did, because we could communicate at that big distance.
Yeah.
And I didn't care, the way the school rules, like you can't wave, you can't do anything. They because you can't disrupt the numbers.
Of course not. Very important.
And, but I didn't care. So I'm like, "Where is she?"
Yeah.
Signed it to him. And, so they had her on the phone, so she could hear me graduate from there. But there was a point after, think about it. It might have been before graduation, actually, that I talked to her. I was doing laundry and she was in the laundry room because we were in an apartment. And I says, "Mom, I have a feeling you're not going to be with us much longer. I think you know it." And she says, "Yeah, you're right."
Oh my gosh.
And I told her, "You have been an absolute angel taking care of us. And even with Dad being gone and all the things that we've walked through. And I want to be there for you and to take care of you, whether you are 95 or whether you are 51.
Yeah.
But I can't help you if you don't let me know how bad it is."
Oh, yeah.
I shaved her legs that day.
Yeah.
As she sat on the toilet, and I sat before her and did that. And that was some of the sweetest times that I had with her, that I remember that. But there was a lot of like, you're supposed to be a good hostess for Paul because he's visiting from England.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to graduate, and so it was just, I was just pushed and pulled on every corner of like, should. Awful for him to be visiting in the middle of that.
Yeah.
I mean, poor guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I graduated, and there was a point after that where, actually it was before I graduated. Sorry, backtrack. When the toxins had gotten so bad to my mom's brain that she was like, I had volunteered part of the school. I took a class where I was helping out kids with developmental disabilities.
Yep.
And that was my mom.
Yeah.
Because the toxins were so bad.
Oh, just overwhelming. Yeah.
So, and by this time her skin was orange. But the thing is somebody had given her a champion juicer.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we're having her do carrot juice and stuff.
Yeah.
But she didn't actually have a practitioner.
Okay.
So when her skin was turning orange, they didn't know, like, her liver is dumping, it's actually working.
Yeah.
As a family, we were on the same page. And so we made her stop.
Oh, no.
Right?
Yeah.
But it was helping.
Yep.
So this was actually, I think, before she got the champion juicer. I can't remember. But I was with my friend in the back room, and all of a sudden I hear the stereo going up really loud.
Yeah.
And I run out, and my mom's pushing buttons on the stereo doing this.
Yeah.
And we had one wall that was, the entire wall was a mirror in the apartment. And I'm trying to get my mom to sit down. Mom, you got to sit down. Mom, you got to sit down.
Yeah.
No, I got to do, she's pushing in the air, out of her mind.
Yeah.
And I look over at, I'm trying to get my mom to sit down. And I look over at the mirror, and I can see at the angle because Paul was staying where my mom's room was, and my mom and I were sleeping together.
Yeah.
For a lot of the years, even in the States, like, my brother had the room in our 2-bedroom apartment, and my mom and I slept together.
Yeah.
So we just, we were on the same track.
Yep.
I was out late. I would think about my mom. I'd call her. She goes, "Oh, thank you so much. I was thinking about you right now."
Yeah.
Like, we were so dialed in.
Yep. Synced up.
And so I'm looking over here, and I see that for the first time, the door is closed to the room.
Oh.
It was too much emotionally and too much there.
Yep.
That Paul had the door closed.
Yep.
He couldn't handle it.
Yep.
And I was alone.
Yeah.
And my friend was there with me. But after that instance, she didn't want to come over to my house. She wanted to come over.
Oh, what a thing to shoulder.
Yeah. It was hard. And but what I said to her, Mom, I'll make you carrot juice. And she goes, okay. And, goes to sit down. I was like, I know that we stopped doing this as a family, but I don't care. It was the one thing to get her to sit down.
It's the one thing that'll work. Right? Yeah.
So I called my aunt and uncle, and they were going to take her the next day back down to the City of Hope. And I said to them, you need to take her now.
Yeah.
And, so they took her down there. They picked her up a day early and drove her down. And I know that was very traumatic for my aunt, because my mom was like, they had her leaning back, but she kept wanting to lock and unlock and grab the door.
Yeah.
And they were like, put your hands down, Sue, put your hands down.
Right.
Right. With my aunt in the back, and they're driving there. And so my brother was at a overnight with the youth group. He went to a different church, and he was volunteering there. And my mom, they drove down there, and then my aunt called, and I don't know if it was the next day maybe or something like that. Like, we were going to go down there anyway, but later. It might have been the same day. I don't remember. But my aunt calls, and she's there at the hospital, and she's like, Sherry, you guys need to get down here now.
Yeah.
And so I called my brother, who had been at this overnight. And by this time he had moved his room, right? And so I don't even know what happened with Paul.
I was going to say
I don't remember. I think maybe he stayed with other family or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you were a little busy.
I was a little busy.
Yeah.
So I called and I said to Chris, we need to go down to Duarte. I need you to come home.
Yeah.
Oh no, I've got this other thing. And I said to him, younger sister, I'm 18 years old.
Yeah.
Chris, mom is dying.
We need to go.
We need to go. And he says, what? Like it hadn't sunk in. I knew in my gut. God told me. Yeah. I knew. But he didn't know. And so it was like, what? And so we drove 80. I mean, we were speeding in the caravan, the maxi pad. We were driving down there. And I know there was some debate of like, do we get a ticket and pay for Paul to go back, or like he's almost done with this? And like, okay, no, that we kept him there. I mean, we probably should have just sent him home.
Yeah.
But they gave her drugs and she was doing this. And then eventually it was like going to the bathroom was part of her routine. So she kept wanting to get up to go to the bathroom, kept wanting to get up. And
she's just on autopilot at that point. Her brain's trying to make
her brain's
sense of
gone.
anything. Yeah.
Her brain's gone.
Yeah.
And I mean, she's answering and stuff, but it's just, she's incoherent. And it was hard too, because it was like, why are you doing this to me?
Oh.
Why are you doing this to me?
Oh, no.
I'm like, no, you don't need to go to the bathroom. I mean, it's like people when they have, dementia, right? They can get real ornery. They can, right? So she was just like out of it.
Yeah.
And anything. And so finally I was like, Mom, I'll paint your nails. I mean, she never painted her nails. I'll paint your nails.
Yeah.
So like just trying to keep her there. And so I'm helping with this, trying to keep her there until the drugs could kick in.
Yeah.
To get her to release the toxins and to release the toxins so she can get her mind back.
Oh yeah.
Because the goal was we just want her to be able to be alive long enough for Sherry to graduate.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So because I mean it was within days.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So so then she's back. Mom, that was really scary, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm so sorry. Sorry, honey, blah, 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 whatever.
Right.
We get her home and I'm doing the graduation stuff. And I think some of the things that was really hard, it was really wearing on me. And they, my family saw it, but they didn't see how bad things were that I was shouldering.
Yeah. I'm just...
My brother didn't see it. I mean, I was the one.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking 18 years old. I mean, you have the weight of the world on your shoulders. Oh, hey, by the way, you've already lost your dad. You're about to lose your mom. You need to graduate. You need to take care of it. Like there's kids that don't know how to do their own laundry at 18.
And you need to be a good hostess.
And you have to be a good hostess on top of it. It's crazy.
It's crazy. And it was all these people speculating, and it was all like just where I could feel the gossip or feel the whatever, like you're not a good hostess, and there was a point like after I graduated
so ridiculous.
where he was going to go back but we didn't have a plan.
Right.
He was going to go back to the airport and we didn't know what was going to happen. And so backtrack my mom, I told her one time because I graduated and then it was like a all night thing where we had friends there and then we were with the youth group or whatever, kind of like we didn't actually do the actual like grad night, like overnight thing, but we had our own version, like our churchy version of it.
Yeah.
And then our friends stayed out later and I came home and I mean, I had come home late. And so the family was like really worried, But I had communicated to my mom.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And I didn't think that, but my mom was kind of out of it. So like, she didn't really know. So they were scared. Like what if something happened to her and we couldn't get a hold of her? Right. Like get a hold of me.
Yeah.
And so that next morning came home late. And that next morning, when I would go out with friends and I mentioned I would call my mom and she'd say, I was thinking about you.
Yeah, just thinking about you.
I'd come home and at this point, the memories are when she had moved out of my room and into her room because my brother had moved out and later on he moved back in. But I would say, hey, Mom, I'm here.
Yeah.
And I would crawl into bed and she would say, tell me all about your day.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter that it was 11 or midnight or whatever, that she was sleeping. She wanted to know about my day.
Yeah.
I could tell her anything. Mom, I ran a stop sign. I did, whatever. And I was open and we had the relationship. But when I did grad night and I came home the next day, in my kitchen, my uncle yelled at me and was like, you should have called me and blah, blah, blah. How come? I'm like, why should I call you? You don't even live in my house.
Right.
But he was scared.
Right. Yep.
But it was like, I was so numb because it's like, I can't do anything right. I'm trying. My mom is dying. I know it. All these things are happening. And now I'm being yelled at.
Right.
And then they were like, you need to move in with them because you're so exhausted and you're wearing all this stuff and we'll take it on as a family. I'm like, okay, but I went to prom. I didn't want to go to prom, but Paul had never been to an American prom and everybody is like, you need to have a break. You've been carrying all this weight. You really should go to prom.
Right. Go take a night.
But I was.
But you can't. That's not something you can just.
I was depressed. I was sad. I was grieving. It was.
Where's
so
your mind going to be the
hard.
entire time? It's not going to be at the prom.
And so that was just. It was a sad time. I think my friends and they tried to keep it upbeat.
Well, and I think that's the hard part for everybody is when somebody's going through a hard time, especially one that they haven't been through. It's the classic. Let me know if you need anything, or nobody knows how to succor that situation. And it's definitely not yelling. Yeah. Well, and it gets to, what do you do?
Well, and it's funny when you said that, it just kind of flashed back because there were times where he would say let me know if I can do anything for you.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, that's like death to a guy that's asking to help. Right. And I'm like, no, I've got it. It was just nothing. Right. I'm like, I didn't even know what to ask for.
Right.
But that one moment that I needed help, the door was closed.
It was closed. Yeah.
So I had to go stay with them. But before that, I remember I had to take Paul back.
Yeah.
And it was like, how is he going to get back to the airport? And I was telling my brother, I don't know who's going to take him to the airport or how this is going to happen. And my brother says, well, let me tell you who's going to do it. You are.
Whoa.
You're going to do it. You need to be the hostess. You're going to do it. And I go, okay, fine. So I planned a trip.
Yeah. And how far is the airport?
And I told my mom. We drove up to 3 hours but we went and we stayed overnight and then dropped him off at the airport, right? Because it was the time of day.
Yeah.
Right. So we drove up. I arranged it. I had a couple of other friends that went with me. I told Mom, we're doing this. I think I still had my mom's beeper. I don't know.
Yeah.
But she wasn't quite in her right mind. So then, again, the family's worried because they're like, where did you go?
Trying to be a good hostess.
I'm trying to be a good hostess.
Yeah.
So we drove up there, dropped him off at the airport, came back home again, more just blah, right? and then you're staying over there. We were visiting the house, and I finally encouraged my friend to come back because she wouldn't come over after experiencing that with my mom.
Yeah.
I was swimming in the swimming pool. I'm like, I'm just going to be swimming in the pool. I'm like, I really need you.
Yeah.
I need you right now. And sure enough, she like, okay, I don't want to go in the house or whatever. Like, but she came over.
Yeah.
And that day I told my mom that I was in there with her. We were going to go to a movie. And finally, you know, my friend was in the back in the room, but you know, she couldn't handle being around my mom at all, you know. And I remember talking to her, my mom, and I let her know, like, Mom, I'll be okay. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
You can go. Like, I'll be okay. And same thing again. You've been an angel and I appreciate you and all this stuff. At this time, she had hospice. And so she was in the living room.
Yeah.
And we had some most beautiful worship times, singing worship, like right around my mom. It was just like so beautiful.
Yeah.
So heartfelt. And it's really actually quite a holy experience.
Yeah.
Like that transition.
Yeah.
So we were going to go see a movie. We went to see one of the new Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
And my aunt stayed with her. And we were in the theater when we got the call. And I remember the family saying, like, do you want to go in there and say goodbye to her? And I was like, no, I already did.
Yeah.
And I saw a vision of my mom because one of the things that she talked about is like how she's just going to fall to her knees and worship when she sees Jesus, you know.
Yeah.
It was just this moment. And so I saw her.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I'm like, she's not in there.
Right. That's just
she's not there.
Yeah.
After that was really, really rough. I was full on living with my aunt and uncle, and we had a really nobody knew what we were doing. They say it in a nice way, right? Yeah. We didn't know
how to do life
with each other. He didn't know.
Yeah.
He was in his 40s, but he had been a missionary kid, and he went to boarding school, and he had all these things that I don't know, that nobody really knew what trauma was.
No.
They didn't know how to deal with kids with grieving and all of that stuff. So certainly things that he never worked through.
Right.
So that was rough. And I was there for the first 6 months. And then I went down to college, Southern California, and studied anthropology, English minor, religion minor.
Yeah.
And Christian school there. And I have a long story.
I love this. Well, and let me pause you right there, because I think I think it needs a little bit more attention. There is something really beautiful about that transition phase, that end of life phase, because there's so much reflection on everybody's part and intentionality, and being able to have those moments and deliver whatever messages you want to back and forth, right? What are the things I really need to say to this person? And being able to have that vision is amazing.
Yeah.
My person was my grandpa,
mm-hmm.
and he died a couple months after my second son was born. And that was another one of those, we had no idea. Like, I thought I still had plenty of time with him. And I go to call at work from my mom, and he's gone. Mm-hmm. He's gone. I have no idea what she's talking about, but then it just instantly, I knew what she was talking about.
Yeah.
And went up, and I remember being taken to his body, and I wanted nothing. I wasn't going to touch him. I wasn't, because that was not him.
Yeah.
That was his shell that was his body, but his soul was gone.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, you get raised as a missionary kid and you have that theology, that gospel.
Mm-hmm.
How did that change or get reaffirmed through the death of your dad and your mom, right? Because the classic questions are, where did we come from? Why are we here? Where are we going? What did that do for that piece of you?
Yeah. I sought God after my dad died because I felt like that would get me closer to my dad too.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of drawing alone in my room and stuff, and then had an experience at church camp that really was transformative. But as a kid, I had a big picture of my dad from when he was in the Air Force. When he was younger, that was on my wall, and I would go and I'd kiss it. Good night, Daddy, every night. Before I'd go to bed. On a side note, it's funny. It also creeped my friends out because my dad was cremated and we brought him back.
Yeah.
And we didn't know exactly what we were going to do. So he was in my mom's room.
Okay. Yep.
And that always like creeped my friends out. Right. And I'm like, what? It's just his ashes.
Right.
Like, it's not him.
It's not a big deal.
So we actually ended up burying him with my mom, like at the feet of the casket with my mom.
Yeah.
But I really, I was passionate about God, and had a pretty impactful experience, that stuck with me. But when my mom passed away, I wasn't prepared for that kind of trial.
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared for, and my uncle and I would get in arguments, and he was a pastor, and now I'm still like on the stage and having to perform.
Oh.
And there were times, not often, but there were a couple times where we would get in an argument, and then that would motivate him for the sermon that he would create, and he would preach his side of the argument in the sermon. No. And I would just
And are you
there.
going to church then?
Yes,
so
we were all going to the same church. Like my cousin was the children's pastor, her husband was the associate pastor. It was just like nepotism. I was
going to say,
oh my gosh.
That's terrible.
So it got to, I went to college, and then I went to graduate school. And then there was a point where I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know what I believe. I just wanted to I was processing through a lot, and I left that church and ended up going elsewhere. But I was so angry. I mean, like, they dealt with a really angry kid for a long time. I was pissed.
Understandably.
All my experiences. But again, it was just like, I'm the youngest of my family, of all the cousins.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of like, what's she doing? Is she maturing enough? Is she what, like, and
the
our
judgments and the expectations.
Yes. And it was like, family get-togethers would be church meetings.
Ugh.
And it was just like, gosh, like, come on, could we not? And, so I was very, very vocal about my criticism.
Yeah. Well, good.
And they didn't know how to handle that. And then it was a lot like, oh my gosh, like, you just couldn't do right. Cause I had a chip on my shoulder.
Right.
And,
which is actually a beautiful spot to be in, because, right, you grow up in this environment, you have this is the sandbox that you're in. And right, even things like if you pray for it, right, you're going to get blessed, or whatever the thing is. I'm sure there was a lot of praying.
Oh yeah.
Right before your dad died and right before your mom died.
Yeah.
Right. and
Yeah.
a lot of faith that they're going to healed
Mhm.
or whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
And now you have this contrary to what you were raised with saying, no, you'll be blessed. Well, 2 really big times wasn't blessed. So now I have these contradictory things that I've experienced. What do I do with it?
Right. And I knew, like, so I mentioned I knew my mom was going to pass away. The church was like focusing on healing and stuff at the time. And it was like everybody, the whole church was praying for my mom and, all this stuff, right? God's going to heal her. But I knew in my gut, she wasn't going to be with us long.
Right.
I would have liked to have believed that and to see it. But I think, again, like I've realized that with so much hurt and pain that I had experienced in my life, that the Holy Spirit has been very kind to me to give me notice.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like that for a while.
Right.
So there was a time when I'm walking in graduate school and I look down and I see a vision and I have arrows embedded in my belly.
Oh.
And in that is like in the movie Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, with the bad guy, she stabs him in the belly and he has this like how could you betray me? And what is this, right? So I had that moment of seeing this and I'm like, ugh. And in that was, God, how could you do this to me? Right.
Oh.
And I heard a voice and the voice said, that wasn't me. That was done in my name, but that was not me. And it was so sad.
Oh.
And my response was, well, then who the hell are you?
Yeah.
And I had at that time another vision where I looked at my face and I saw cracks all over my face.
Oh.
And I said, God, I am so ugly. And again, the voice, I used to call it the voice, right?
Yeah.
Later on, the Holy Spirit, but the voice said, it's not you, it's the clown makeup that's ugly. And all of a sudden I could see all the caked on and what was the cracks that were shining through was my face.
Oh.
But it was like, It was the facade that I was putting on, right?
Yep.
So
those are powerful.
it was super powerful. And that was what led me on a journey to where then my health completely crashed.
Oh.
I had chronic fatigue syndrome.
Well, yeah.
I was living at that time in a ministry house, like in downtown Fresno.
Okay.
And I was going to graduate school and I finished out the semester, but I couldn't do it anymore. I could barely, that was when I was substitute teaching. I could barely walk up the steps. I had no energy.
Nothing. Your adrenals are shot. Everything is
was done.
Done.
I was done.
Yeah.
All of this stuff just piled up until crash.
Yeah.
And at that point, I ran into my uncle's house. We had a new doctor. It was a homeopathic doctor that came over to the house and with his wife and his daughter, and we had them over for dinner. And I'm like, you're a doctor? And so, yeah. And I went in the back. I'm like, excuse me. And I come back and I go, what does this mean? And I had my dad's death certificate and I handed it to him and I go, what is that?
Oh.
I had no idea. And he looks at it and he goes, nobody told you? And I said, no.
What?
I don't even know what happened. And he cardiac arrest, pulmonary edema, all this stuff. Well, what happened with my dad, he had an allergic reaction to the dyes that they used with the angiogram.
Oh, no.
And he had an enlarged heart, congenital heart condition. And, I talked to my brother. My brother's a nurse, and he says, if he was here in the States or the modern medicine that we had, it would have worked. Like, this wouldn't have happened.
Right. They would have caught it, would have been able to do this.
Simplistic explanation of what I remember was realizing, like, that's not what they put on the death certificate.
Right.
Right. So, I then, when my health crashed, that was the doctor that I wanted to see, because the doctors that I went to were like, what's wrong with you? I couldn't even make a fist with my right hand.
Yeah.
I mean, this is easy now, but I had to peel my fingers together and then it would hold. And I did sign language, but I had to peel my fingers to make an H.
Whoa.
I had to do this to make an E.
Is the cause of that? That's probably a quick rabbit hole.
Mental, emotional, I think. I had some mercury fillings. There was another, but it all just came crashing at that moment.
Yep.
I had brain fog in my 20s. I could barely climb out. All of this stuff was crashing all around. Adrenals, everything.
Yeah.
So
this
felt
is the first
gaslighting
doctor that is being honest with you and giving you good explanation.
Yeah.
Where one of the themes that I've noticed is, as a kid in the Philippines or anywhere else, it's okay, we're not going to give you all the depth of what's going on. We're going to give you the surface level. And here's this doctor who's
he's telling me.
Telling you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he is looking at it but he's straight up saying, they're not saying exactly what, they don't put the actual cause on the death certificate. Right. They're not going to put all that there because the doctor that had worked with my dad, she was so devastated that she wanted to quit her practice. She knew that we gave up everything to live in a foreign country. Right. And then my dad's right-hand guy, who's Filipino, was talking to her and encouraging her. No. And even my mom's saying this too, you're doing good work. You need to continue to do the service that you're doing. But she was really just absolutely heartbroken and devastated losing her patient. Right.
Yeah.
So, but they just, they don't put that on the death certificate.
Right.
So yeah, that was, there's so much.
I know.
There's so much to the story. He helped me out significantly.
I was going to say, that's.
And then I moved, when I was 25, there was a bit of inheritance that I got from my parents from some life insurance stuff too. And I got it at 25 and there was a battle because it was I felt like my family was controlling me financially and all of this stuff. Right. And so finally I got this, and my dream was I want to go to all 7 continents.
Cool.
Including Antarctica.
Yeah.
And I always am I want to have an interesting life. I want to do interesting things.
Yeah.
And I was always interested in that. So when there was one guy that goes, well, you can work hard and you can save. And by the time you're 30, you could go to Antarctica. And I'm like, that's lame.
What's plan B? I want the other version.
So my health crashed, right? And so I'm like, I'm going to Antarctica. I ended up moving to Oregon. I went on a trip to Antarctica. I was kayaking.
How do you get on a trip to Antarctica?
On the ice. I went as a tourist.
Okay, all right.
It's pricey, right, to go on it. But we took a Russian research ship.
Cool, yeah.
And then we went on the boat and camped on the ice and did the whole thing. In Oregon, my brother had a place and asked me to move up there in his place. So I moved away. I mean, it was brilliant.
Yeah.
I had a naturopathic doctor that I started seeing up there, and huge change and transformation, right? Being, the natural health side.
Right. Well, and there had to be both, right? You're taking care of yourself physically with a naturopathic doctor, which is amazing. And your soul, you're going out and doing the thing that you want to do and not trying to please other people. You're doing what you're called to do. I'm going to say no.
I'm going to do, because when I was in graduate school, I was studying marriage and family therapy.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was, even in, after my mom died, I never had counseling really. I mean, there was a guy in the Philippines that kind of helped the missionary kids a little bit.
Yep.
But I never really had, there was another gal in junior high that I would go talk to as well at the school. But, when we were back in the States, didn't really have that. So all of a sudden when my mom died, I got insurance and stuff. And they're like, I think it was really sweet for my aunt. Just go, I think you need some counseling. So, so I did that. I got counseling, and then I was studying counseling. So I had some of that too. So a lot of the things for me, this is part of me being real angry, is finally feeling my emotions and expressing it rather than shoving it all down.
Yeah.
And, so Yeah. So anyway, I'm like, all these things that I had processed. So then when I'm up in Oregon, I'm gonna go to Antarctica. I'm gonna do the thing, right?
Yeah. And you want to go visit all 7? Let's go.
Yeah, I'm gonna do this. So I still haven't hit all 7, but I've got to go to Africa and Australia.
The hardest one off the list right out of the gate.
Yeah. It was life-changing.
Yeah.
It was absolutely life-changing. But then it was weird because I'm looking at the ice, I'm kayaking. I mean, it was just the coolest thing ever. And I'm also like, I tell one of the guides that was leading part of the trip, like, what do I do with my life now? Like, I just did my biggest dream. And she's like, find something else,
Yeah.
And she was really encouraging on that trip. But yeah, so I came back and I made a mistake. I flew back for Christmas because their summer is during our winter.
Yeah.
So I flew back for Christmas to be with my family in Fresno before flying back to my home in Oregon.
Yeah.
Nobody asked me to see my photos the entire time I was there with my family.
Really?
They never asked.
I'm kind of flabbergasted.
Yeah.
That would be my first.
No,
tell me about the trip. Show me some pictures.
What they asked me is, were there any Christians on the boat? And I was like, I don't know. I didn't even pay attention.
Right. I was like amazed at one of the most amazing places on the planet that hardly anybody gets to see.
Yeah. Well, I was enjoying the freedom.
Yeah.
Here. I mean,
I was going to say, you said it was life-changing.
We had some drinks and stuff that we were on there. I mean, I was not into that.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, it was like, I don't know that I believe this.
Oh, yeah.
And they were like, what? But what about your mom and dad? And I'm like, I don't know. That's them. This is where I'm at right now, So I went through a journey, 7 years. I did some meditation retreats. I was doing energy medicine. There was a lot of different things that I wanted to know after that vision and that experience. God, who are you? And be like Abraham.
Yeah.
Abraham didn't have all the Torah, and he didn't have all this stuff that was there. It was like God called him on this journey. And I'm like, I wanted to know who you are and what's true.
You've certainly been called on a journey.
And I never didn't believe in God.
Right.
Right. I mean, it was for me to say the Holy Spirit. So I just would say the voice, but that was close. But there was a point, even with that, it was like, why is it always bad stuff? Because there was one time when I was in Fresno, where I drove by the church and I felt prompted to pray to protect the church, the computers upstairs.
Oh.
And pretty much at that time, like within that hour, half an hour, maybe even minutes, somebody broke into the church and they stole the downstairs computers.
What?
And it was like, what? And then there was a point, after college where I went to Greece and was there. I was helping put a library on computers. And I had this dream that I was arguing with God that my grandma was going to only live for a week. And I was trying to push it out. So it was like, I knew a week to 2 weeks. And I had to leave Greece early. And pretty much to the hour, to the minute of when I had that dream, it was 1 week that she passed away.
No way.
And so it was like, this is horrible. Why is it always bad stuff?
Right.
I don't want this. I don't want to hear this. I don't want it. I don't want it.
Right.
And so I went on this journey, but it was like, I don't want it. And then there was a period of time where all of a sudden I realized, because I would ask people, like, don't you ever, like, when you're driving, you just know you're supposed to slow down or whatever, then there's a cop or there's an accident or something. And they're like, look at me like I'm crazy. And they're like, no, I never experienced that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you don't have that? No. Okay. So, when you kind of like get a feeling that somebody's going to die.
No. What are you talking about?
No. So, I just realized at one point that it was a kindness. I didn't think it was a kindness, but I realized I was vulnerable I had a lot of pain, and God took care of me.
Yeah.
By giving me that. And so then it was like, come back.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
I didn't realize I don't actually want you to go away. Please come back.
Yeah. So at that point, it was like, I knew that I had to listen.
Here's this gift. Here's this thing.
I had to obey.
Yeah.
And listen. And little things would happen. And it was like, one point I heard a squeak, and the voice said, if you don't go now, that thing will die. And I run into the living room, and it's our cat hovering over a little bird. And I'm taking the bird, and I'm taking it to the vet hospital. I drive it over, and this whole thing, and they're all looking at me like, what's your problem? And then the Holy Spirit again, like, this is how I love you. I love you that much more. Like the scriptures were coming back to my mind, right? All these things.
That's so cool.
And it was like, okay. So on September 2010, September 27th, it's my half birthday.
Okay.
I just turned 43. Wait.
We were trying to do this earlier.
No, I just turned 44.
How old are we?
Oh my goodness, I turned 44. Yeah. I'm 1 year younger than when my father passed away.
Oh, yeah.
I'm 44.
Oh, wow.
And so I got I started my period. Funny story.
Yeah.
I ran out of products.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I got to go to the store. And so I go to Yolks. I was living in Sandpoint.
Okay.
I go to Yolks. And there's all these other things that I cut out. I was like, I worked at a whitewater raft company. I mean, there's all these adventures.
You have experienced
There's
life.
adventures. Yeah, it's fun. So I go to Yolks. I stand in front of the products, and I hear a voice that says, "Go to Winter Ridge." And I'm like, that's the health food store, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm like, ugh, but I knew I had to listen.
Yeah. But I'm already here.
So I wrote down the price, and I drove, and then I'm like, I'm going to go to Super One instead.
That's not what the voice said.
I go to Super One. I get in front of the products. By this time, everything's all organic. I'm all clean from the naturopathic doctor and everything, right?
Well, and the terrible stuff that's in the mainstream products.
Oh,
is
it's
so
terrible.
Bad.
It's awful. So I stand in front of the products, and again, go to Winter Ridge. So I write down the prices.
Yeah.
And I go to Winter Ridge, and at the time, there was probably maybe 4 aisles of the store.
Okay.
It's so much bigger now.
Yeah.
But it was tiny.
Little tiny thing.
Feminine products, shampoo, all that stuff was all in one aisle because it was just like real small.
Yep.
So I get there, and I've got my prices, and I'm looking, and I've got jeans and a nice little jacket on. And as I get up, there was a sale. So I'm like, is this the reason why you had me go here? Is the best price? Like, this is crazy.
This
and
is a really
I get
weird
up,
way to utilize this gift.
and then there's a handsome man that asks me for help buying shampoo. He thought I worked there.
Is that Tim?
That's Tim.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
That's so good.
So you can see why I can't just start with talking about Tim.
No.
Because the whole story of listening to the Holy Spirit and all of that stuff leads to, and the not listening leads to it. But the crazy thing is that he was at a thrift store across the street buying a bucket for his kindling for his fire.
Mm-hmm.
And he got the bucket. He found the bucket. And he gets in the car, and he's like, I wonder what I'm supposed to do now. He doesn't just sit. Tim doesn't just sit. If you get there and meet him, like, he doesn't just sit in the car, right? And he looks across the street, and he sees Winter Ridge, and he's like, just starting in the healthy journey, but doesn't really know. He's like, well, I guess I need shampoo, but I don't really know what healthy shampoo is or anything.
Right.
And just kind of glows at him. And so he goes there. But I happen to be dressed up like the other people that were working there. And so we joke around and say, and I think that this is pretty accurate. He was waiting for me to be obedient.
Yeah.
He was waiting in the car for 45 minutes. Right. And so my understanding now is that even in my disobedience, even in my wandering, that was still part of the story that God knew. And God knew that I was going to not do that, right? And not do it. So we started dating. I, at one point, heard a voice also again, because it was like, what are we doing in this relationship? What's happening? And it was just, I choose you. I choose you. I choose you. And I go, okay, like you're it.
Yeah.
And so then we moved from Sandpoint, and there was a place in Spokane and elsewhere. And we were all of a sudden curious again. We're like, oh, we want to go to church. And I'm just kind of looking at the vibe. I was studying herbalism.
Yep.
And I was studying with the School of Natural Healing, and the founder of it was LDS, and he would quote scriptures and stuff, that was in there.
Yeah.
And so, I'd crack open my Bible and I'd read a little bit more about, the leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations, and God gives herbs for the service of man.
Yeah.
And I started studying herbalism myself, because I was working on my own thing. I had experienced huge, gifts.
Yeah.
I had already studied massage before then.
Okay. Yep.
And so it was like, well, we went to Spokane, and we're there, and let's go to church. And I'm interested. And all of a sudden we were both kind of interested.
Cool.
Well, and then all of a sudden was the whole, well, what are you going to do?
Right.
Sherilyn, what do you believe?
Right. Because there isn't just here's go to church. And I mean, it can be, but there's so many subsets of which one vibes with what are you feeling called to?
So I would, when I would go back to visit my family, I would go to church to see how much I had healed, to see how angry I was.
Yeah.
Going, okay, I think I've healed a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think I've healed a little bit more.
Yep.
But this time I actually wanted to go.
Were you what was your anger directed towards? Was that at God? Was it
angry. I was angry with my family.
With your family.
And I realized later, this was one of the things that I realized, is that we operate based off of our beliefs.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So the belief that I had was my family would have rather I was the nuisance. They would have rather had my mom live and me die.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
Yeah.
That's not heavy.
So how does somebody live?
Especially around them.
With that feeling.
Yeah. And forgive. And forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I remember years later, like realizing that, telling my aunt, and she goes, oh, that's a lie from Satan. Like that is not, they were just dealing with an angry kid. And then they were dealing with a way that continued to drive those thoughts in, or they would, can't forget obedience or whatever. And all I just needed was grace at the time.
Yes.
Right? So it was, and yes, both. I mean, I totally get that, right? Like I am talking about, like I hear the voice, and I knew I needed to listen to keep the voice there because it's so intimate, right? So there was that was the drive for a lot of it. And at that point, then I think in a lot of ways my eyes were open and my heart was open, and I would hear worship songs and I would start crying, and it was like everything was like real.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, I'm like songs that I had sung forever, and it was
that
just
all of a sudden the meaning, the feeling. Yeah.
The meaning. And I knew the love and the grace, my brokenness. I knew all of those things.
Yeah.
I knew of God's protection that had kept me safe and secure. The times that I had dated somebody that had been into the occult or whatever, and I'm going, oh my God, I could have had like a Satanist child. Well, I don't know that he was Satanist, but you know what I mean? It was just like, right? Like all the things that is like, I was protected
all along the way,
even though I was also burnt and walked through stuff.
Yep.
It could have been way worse.
Yep.
And here I am, you know, I mean, in this relationship, I mean, I was pursuing because, you know, it was a tough work situation for Tim. And so I was praying for that for him.
Yeah.
And then it was like, but what about you?
Right.
You know, so then all of a sudden now we're like, oh, we're on two different places. You know, he's like, oh my gosh, did you like end up in a cult? Like what's going on? And so it was like this whole like battle.
Yeah.
Right. So that was really challenging. And God really worked in his heart and in his life.
Yeah.
So when you ask the question about like how things have changed,
yeah,
and when we got married and all of that, right? It was, we had felt like it was like we were married.
Right.
But when we actually got married, it was also, you know what, we've done our own thing. Now we want it to be a community thing and we want to honor family and all that. And we want to honor God and all of that.
Yeah.
My good friend was also a mentor. She was a lot older than me, is a lot older than me. She baptized us on the day that we had our wedding rehearsal, and we got married in Fresno.
Yeah.
And, you know, we had been in Spokane and then we've been in Coeur d'Alene. We're down there when this happened. And then we had a beautiful wedding, and we had, Tim's daughter, Jasmine, and, her now husband, but her boyfriend at the time, their little baby, Grace was there. You know, it was small and intimate, but everybody was part of it.
It sounds beautiful.
And my bouquet, you know, I walked down the aisle and everybody gave me flowers, and we tied my parents' locket of their picture on there.
Yeah.
Because you are all part of me.
Yeah.
You know, and
yes.
we're all coming together. And so it was really quite meaningful.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And we've seen transition of building businesses and trying new things, and me going back into massage, and all that stuff happened around COVID, and it was crazy. And, but now and I was trained in hypnosis as well. So like even losing, I stopped the marriage and family therapy program. I didn't finish. And it's just like nothing is ever wasted.
No.
All of these things come back. And now I work with women with autoimmune and chronic inflammation. And I do herbal consulting. I do herbal detox massage where I custom the herbal blends. I apply them topically.
Yeah.
I had finished the School of Natural Healing. It took me 5 years to get through to get my master herbalist. And then I do hypnosis. I actually do face analysis too. So there's all these like really
that's so
cool things. But just to see how it all ties together. And I, you know, all this like not fitting in and feeling alone in the crowd and whatever, just to get to the point where I'm like, you know what? I don't know that anybody fits in.
Nope. And
I think we all we feel alone in a crowd because we feel like we should, you know, like there's like this something. So just be you know what I mean? Like, and just like, so it's more about like the joy of the things that we're doing and creating. But the cool thing is our landlords from the house that we were at in Sandpoint.
Yeah.
They tore down the house. It was leaking. I mean, it was cold. It was all this stuff, right? When we lived there.
Yeah.
They tore it down and they rebuilt it. And I helped, you know, we were in Coeur d'Alene, did the community garden, did all this stuff that I was kind of helped save the community garden.
Nice.
Do all this stuff. But then we got priced out of the area.
Yep.
And our landlords, our old landlords up in Sandpoint said, hey, will you come back and stay up here? And there's a cabin above one of the garages there. And so we are literally on the same property where we lived at in Sandpoint in our BC days, right? Like just totally different. And so we're there looking at the same view, watching the eagles and stuff like that. It's beautiful.
Sounds beautiful.
We're renting. So it's like, how in the world did we end up here? This is crazy.
Right.
And it just feels like so kind and full of grace to
Yeah.
be back there again. And we don't know how long we'll be there.
Right.
But we're just enjoying the ride while we go.
Yes.
And yeah, so every day is a beautiful surprise. We've got Tim's daughter and her husband now. We've got 2 other grandkids. So there's 3 grandkids. They're in Arizona.
Yay.
And that is the joy of my life.
Yeah.
You know, I've never had any kids myself, but I get to be a grandma.
Yeah,
which
that's
is really
so cool.
And every day I get to help people with my hands.
Yeah.
I make fists. I work on people. I do massage. I do, you know, all of these things. And I'm actually planning to be part of a hypnosis summit for women at the end of April.
Cool.
Too.
Yeah.
So I published. I'm about to publish in the next week or so my 3rd journal.
Amazing.
So lots of really cool stuff.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Can we touch on that really quick?
Yeah.
Maybe hold those up.
Okay.
And show them on the camera.
So these are just the 2. The spring one is here. There we go. Okay. So these are, I designed these. They're seasonal journals. They're colored. I'll give you one there. Please. You can flip through.
Yeah.
They're colored. They're artistic. They have a herb of the season. They have lessons from the season. So one of the things that I've learned is if we can be in tune with where we are and then in tune with the seasons, cycles of busy, cycles of rest, all of those things, you can actually help yourself. Since I've been doing that, I don't get sick.
Right.
You know, very rarely.
Yeah,
very rarely.
No.
I used to be sick all the time as part of like autoimmune stuff that I was dealing with. But
this is beautiful.
Yeah. So super fun.
Awesome.
There's questions to start, questions at the end. And then my favorite thing is actually each one, if you look at the very back, it rolls into the next season. So for autumn, it says, do you notice that last graceful leaf fall? And then the snow starts to fall. Right. So this one in the winter, the buds begin to form at the very end of the book.
That's
like the last pages there.
Last pages. Oh yeah. And there's a little.
And then there's a little snail that shows up all throughout them, which is kind of fun. So
that's so cool.
So yeah.
Well, and that is such a good point. I used to fight seasonal depression, but it was because I fought the season.
Yeah.
It's like, I want the sunshine. I want this.
Yeah.
Well, no, we have seasons for a reason. Certain things grow in certain seasons. Your life, you go through different seasons, right? Young, middle-aged, old, all like my theme throughout my life, and there's been times where I've known it, but I haven't lived it, is go with the flow.
Yeah.
And when I go with the flow, when I'm not fighting against it, man, life works a lot better. And I might think I want to go that direction, but everything's flowing that direction. Go with the flow. There's a reason why any and all those things enter your life, right? It's thinking you're going to get your family therapy license, and then you never finish that, but you end up touching all these different modalities that really hone in. Okay, I've experienced all this stuff in my life, and I know I want to help heal people, and I've touched this, and this is the way I can bring this gift to the world. And if I hadn't touched this and this and this, I wouldn't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't know. And nothing is wasted.
Nothing is wasted.
Nothing is wasted. I mean, I've had clients that have escaped their country from war.
Yeah.
And they don't belong here in the US. And they're like, why? I'm trying to figure out who I am and all these things. And I'm like, you're a third culture kid. And they're like, what? Like,
right.
like, yeah. Like, you ever feel like a chameleon? And they're like, yes. So it's just like, I'm able to, and, even like grieving and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like I walk with clients through grief.
Yeah.
Too, not just their grief of their health, but if there's loss or other things, right? It's like there's things that I've learned. And one of the things that is, I think, the most amazing, I'll touch on 2 points there, is that so the first one, go with the flow. Like I get to feel like when people are stressed out, right? And they're consistently stressed, they're stuck in a job, stuck in a situation, you know, like maybe like me as a kid, right? I was in a family dynamic and a church dynamic that didn't work for me.
Right.
You know, and, you know, things have come back around, but it's not in the same way.
Right.
Right. Like my faith is my faith.
Yes.
And so, but at that time, feeling like I have to fit a mold and everything, right? I'm not going with the flow because I'm feeling things are clamped down.
Right.
If I were to work on myself back then, I would feel my lymphatic system completely blocked up.
Yes.
And the moment that I step away is when all of a sudden, like things are moving easier.
Yeah.
And I've had that with clients, like just stifling job, really difficult. And then all of a sudden they're out of that situation. And it's like, man, things are moving. You know, we're applying herbs topically too, but you know, we don't need to have as beefy of the herbs to get things moving.
Right.
Because your body is not in stress land.
Yep.
And so it literally is go with the flow is like, if you think about all the negative emotions, anger, bitterness, right? All of that, your body is clamping down.
Right. Those are blocked energies.
It's literally blocked. And
yes.
like the river that is inside of you, your lymphatic system is not
shut
going
down.
With the flow.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like from a
Isn't
physical
that cool?
and a spiritual standpoint, right? Of
yeah.
what you're saying, they go together.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's actually one of the reasons why I love doing the hypnosis with folks.
Yeah.
Is because they see dramatic results with the herbal detox massages if we're doing herbal consulting, but where it's the longest lasting effect is when we can get in there and we can work on forgiveness and we can work on the stress and we can work on all of these things through hypnosis and having that shift. And it's so powerful that at times there are clients that have come in to see me and they're like, well, this doesn't really work. Like,
right.
Like, okay. So what's going on? And then they name something else. And we're like, well, we didn't work on that. What about this? And they're like, oh, that's no big deal. I had the conversation. Like, yeah, but that's what we worked on.
Right.
Right. Like now let's unwind this other thing because that's what's up for you right now.
Yeah.
But it can be so quick.
Right.
That all of a sudden just the problem just disappears. It just dissolves.
Right.
Right. It's easy. I mean, I got here my shirt.
It doesn't
get easier. You get stronger, but it does get easier because you're stronger.
Yes.
Right.
Well said. Very well said.
And so I say that a lot of times too. It's like something could just shift.
Yeah.
And it could actually be easy.
Yes.
You know, to shift.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden
really
you're like,
point.
That problem isn't there anymore.
Right.
You know, so it's pretty remarkable. And I, like, from the marriage and family standpoint, I was wrestling with the whole idea of like, okay, what is this like as a Christian? Is it not, you know, whatever. Right.
Yeah.
I called this guy and he was a Christian hypnotist and wanted to talk to him. And he didn't know my background or anything. He randomly goes, well, good thing that you didn't become a therapist because this is a whole lot like quicker of results that you can get. And I just laughed. I'm like, you have no idea that I was studying marriage and family therapy. So like, you know, the journey, right? Like the hiccups,
so cool.
It actually ended up working.
Right. It did. Well, and to me, God made each of us unique. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so you said it earlier. There's something special about your uniqueness. And so when you go out and discover that and live fully in it, you're going to be able to bring whatever that gift is, whatever those things are that you were created for, fully out. And so it is funny how it doesn't get easier, it gets stronger, or you get stronger, but it does get easier too. And I'm curious because I have, there's a whole, you guys, we're going to have to talk about this offline because I've got a crazy herbalist story. We were apprenticing with an herbalist. But the hypnotism side, I'm curious about. I want to just rabbit hole on that really quick. How did you, like, what was it that initially drew you to that? And what does that look like? How does that help somebody?
Yeah. So I had a couple of experiences with a gal who had done hypnosis.
Yeah.
That I think was beneficial. But I hired a coach to launch my own business. So I was working under another practice and decided I wanted to go out on my own. And there were aspects of my business, like the herbal consulting and other stuff that I wasn't incorporating there that I was doing on the side. And so it was like, okay, if I can be on my own, then I can incorporate all of me, and all of the things that I'm offering. And so I hired this coach. Well, one of the things that she did was she had another side where she was training in NLP and hypnosis. And she brought that on for it. She specifically worked with a lot of massage therapists,
Okay. Yep.
you know, for their businesses. And so she offered this class in hypnosis, and she started because she did this coaching program. And then in the middle of COVID, all these people are like, oh my gosh, what do? I can't do one-on-ones with people anymore. Right. So she started training them in hypnosis. So then that way they can pivot. And so she would say, like, you know, it's important, whatever you're doing, to think long-term. Your body is not going to be able to do this forever.
Right. Well, especially with massage. Oh my gosh.
It's hard.
You
right?
get worn down.
It's hard. It's hard work. And then, but also, like, what are the limitations? Like, so whatever business you have or situation, like, what are the limitations?
Right.
You always want to plan your exit plan. So, like, my dad passing away, he was training the gentleman, his, you know, right hand guy, to take things over and to try to raise support in the Philippines to keep the ministry going.
Right.
A lot of it was based off of my dad's personality.
I was going to say.
And his connections.
Mr. Charisma.
Yes,
Yeah.
Mr. Charisma. So the whole thing fell apart.
Right.
Right. They did keep things going for a little bit, but it dissolved. When I did the community garden,
right,
from day one that I said yes to do this, and I was doing this in the middle of COVID, it was awful. It was awful. 2 years, 2020 and 2021, that I was like scrambling, depleting my adrenals. But from day one, it was like, I am the interim person who's my replacement.
Yeah.
Because I learned that seeing what happened with my dad.
Right.
So whatever you do, what's your exit plan?
Right.
Right. Like saving up for retirement, or also planning ahead for, like, my body is not going to be able to do this all the time. So, like, what other aspects can I do in my business? Right. She was doing that. And then she was training in hypnosis.
Yeah.
And that's where I brought that back in then. And it was like, okay. Cool. And I continued on it. I'm like, I feel like it is a really cool work.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's really cool work. It's not stage hypnosis.
Right.
It's not scary. It's not like controlling other people or whatever.
No. I'm not going to start squawking like a chicken.
No. And that's the one that everybody always says, like, right. And then how that happens is they're designed to entertain. And so they pick people that want to be the life of the party.
Yep.
Okay. So that is a design from step one to the end of how they're going to do that.
Yep.
I get introverts that would never work for.
Nope.
That they have no problem in my office.
Yeah.
Right. And it's participatory. Sometimes they're responding. Like, sometimes there's like, okay, you're walking down this path. What do you see here? You know, whatever. Right. So it, like, you could also be talking to.
Right.
Hypnosis for children. They often don't have their eyes closed.
Right.
Right. So it's, I mean, I had a client who was on the spectrum, and, you know, first day anyway, he wasn't comfortable closing his eyes, just stare at a spot in the wall and listen to me talk to you.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what we did, and it worked.
Yeah.
And then afterwards he was like, okay, I'm going to close my eyes, but it's highly effective. So what happens is, things are calmed down. Your brain is calmed down, so you can work with the unconscious mind, and we're working together.
Right.
So in the interview process, I'm finding out what you want, and I'm wording things in your language. So then that way it fits with you. If there's something that you want that you're like, no, I don't know if that's possible and I can't ever do that, then it's like, I'm becoming this more and more, or I see that this might be more possible or whatever. But when you are in that relaxed state of hypnosis, you're able to, you know, for lack of a better word, they say that bypassing the critical faculty, but it doesn't mean that you're not critical.
Right.
Right. it enables you to go more towards what you actually want.
Yeah.
Because if I were to, what they call suggestions, right? In hypnosis, if we're going to do something that goes against you and your values, you will start to come out of trance.
Right. Makes sense.
So like you will reject it.
You have an aversion to it.
You will have an aversion to it.
Yeah.
So it's highly effective. It's very fast. And then sometimes it's in layers before you actually look back and go, oh my gosh. I mean, I had a gal that worked with me, and I love this story because, coaches hire coaches.
Yep.
Right.
100%.
So I had another gal that was working with me, and I was doing a reunion, and I hadn't gone back to see my Filipino classmates.
Oh, I was wondering if you had ever been back.
And last year I went, and it was like, oh my gosh, what is this going to be like? And, whatever. And I had her work with me, on some of my memories of bullying and other things like that. Right.
Yeah.
And I was walking one day, and all of a sudden I heard a bark. Well, I had been bitten by a dog in the past.
Oh.
And so the smallest dog, I would flinch.
Yeah. You have
it's just natural reaction.
Yeah.
I heard a dog bark, and I turned, and I stood down a pit bull.
Holy smokes.
And I didn't flinch at all.
Nice.
And I had my hands on my hips. My chest was big.
Yeah.
And I was ready. And in my head, because I think that they get it, even if you just think it, I'm a little woo-woo in that way.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I walk by a dog, and I'm like, in my head, they're in a car or something. And in my head, I'm like, oh, there's a dog. And I don't even say anything. And they just turn like they felt me looking at them.
Yep.
Right. So I've got my hands on his hips, and I'm there. And I said to him, I don't want to do this to you, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Yep. Like, I will kick your face. I will fight so hard. I will fight so hard. This will not be
a pleasant experience for you.
And I'm saying that this is not going to be a pleasant experience. Like you are like, you're in control. Yep. You are in control. What are you going to do?
Yep.
And each time he would kind of lunge at me a little bit, and I would kind of right back at him.
Yeah.
And, I locked eyes. Like, I did not and the owner was calling out to him, and then he went and grabbed him. But afterwards, cause I'm very in tune with all this stuff, right? To be able to recognize it. Some people might not recognize it and go, oh, it was no big deal. Like, I recognized it, and I was like, she was doing a hypnosis on bullying, and my mind translated that even to the dog barking at me.
Yes, it did.
And so I was fine. But then I realized later, the other thing that she had worked on with me was like, the past is the past.
Yeah.
And letting things go and feeling safe and secure and all of that, right? I had holy terror about losing people that were close to me.
Yeah.
And before, how phobias work is you have two main events. You have a significant event, and then you have a triggering event that loops it, and that locks in that phobia.
Yep. So
in February, before my father passed away, I had an encounter, and the whole middle school would leave, and we would go camping, and I hiked into a volcano, and we make a chicken meal out of a live chicken, cut off its head, and do the whole thing, right? So, and that year I don't, was different, but every year in middle school we did something.
Yeah.
So one of the classmates said something to me to the effect of, in a survival situation, either we're going to eat you, or you're going to be the first to go, or whatever. Like,
they're taking out the skinny little blonde girl.
Devastated. And we were on the bus on the way home, and I was trying not to cry and let anybody see me.
Yeah.
And it was like, God, if you're real, then I'm not going to say his name, is going to apologize to me. And I kept saying that over and over again in my prayer, just trying not to cry. He will apologize to me. He will apologize to me. God, if you're real. God, if you're real. God, if you're real. How come he won't? How come? I know God is more real because he didn't answer that prayer and he didn't control somebody else.
Yeah,
right? We have choice.
Yeah.
But I went on this reunion and I felt solid and secure. But that happened in February. And then March 7th, just weeks later, my father passed away.
Right.
It locked in that phobia.
Yeah.
And it was the weirdest thing that I'm like, my biggest fear was losing everyone I love and not having the tools to survive. What is this whole like tools to survive thing? That is like the weirdest phobia.
Right.
Right. It was strong.
Yeah.
So it was constantly, if anything happened with Tim or whatever, I'm like on the internet and I'm searching.
Yeah.
To like, how do I fix this health issue? What is the thing? And
right.
like I was
trying to control it, trying to prevent it.
That was one thing that even for me, I realized like months later, 6 months plus later, I was talking to this gal and I go, you know what? I don't have that fear and I don't have those thoughts anymore.
Cool.
Like you took I think that was part of the hypnosis that we did.
Yeah.
And there was, it was not immediate. Maybe there was a couple things that happened that all of a sudden it just shifted and dissolved, but we worked on that.
Yeah.
Well, it's powerful.
It is. Well, and that's one of my favorite things is, right. We can misremember things and then we can reinforce that misremembering.
Yeah.
And whatever we think is just as real as this table is, right? Like we create reality. So it's I'm always going to be poor. My mother-in-law, she just knows she's always going to get a good parking spot. And sure enough, she always gets a good parking spot. Yeah. And whenever I pull into a parking lot, I'm like, I need to channel my mother-in-law. And sure enough, when I do think that thing, I always get a good parking spot, right? My brother got bit by a dog and I very much remember that. And that got tied to other stuff because it was kind of my fault. So right, there's just these things that we end up, what seem like small moments end up being the thing that reinforce that belief. And then we add to, right, this web of where's this core belief, but all the things that connect to it that reinforce that belief. And we tell ourselves stories, we make those things real. But then when you can get past all that clutter and speak to your higher self or your superconscious or God, there's a lot of different variations to that theme, getting to the root of that thing and dissolving.
Yeah.
It's amazing what can happen. And then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you go, oh, this thing that used to trigger me doesn't trigger me anymore.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
It's just gone.
It's so cool.
And then it takes a while for you to recognize, like, somebody just rearranged the room.
Right.
For me,
somebody just rearranged the room.
I don't recognize when people change their hair.
Oh.
I'm like, something's different.
Yeah.
Right? Like other people really recognize it, but I don't, right? So it's like something, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's shifted. That's not there anymore.
Yeah.
Right? That's a lot of what hypnosis is.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to say this one thing because I think it is fair. When I had my moment, my come to Jesus moment.
Yeah.
Right? All of a sudden the bitterness and the pain and everything was like literally internally, it was gone.
Isn't that great?
It was gone. And I could see my family with eyes of love. When I realized the lie, I could see them with love.
Yeah.
My uncle is the one who married my husband.
Is he?
Yes. And we found in my dad's writings an old wedding ceremony, and he did my dad's wedding ceremony.
Oh my gosh. That is so sweet. Your dad was there.
Yeah. Yeah. And even cooler, the Elvis Presley of the Philippines sang at our wedding.
No, he didn't. That's so good. Oh.
Yeah, he, Eddie Mesa and his wife, Rosemary Hill.
Oh, they're
in the States, and he thought he was booked for something else.
Yeah.
On our weekend and couldn't do it. And then he called back and said, I got my dates wrong. I could do it.
Oh, I love it.
So, yeah, it all ties together. And what I think one of the things that I wish for kids too is to understand, like, take the God's eye view of things, right?
Oh, that's
it's like,
so well said.
If you could zoom back
and
see, like, this totally sucks.
Yeah.
And it's awful. And the trauma is terrible and all of those things, right? But, sad. My uncle has Parkinson's now.
Yeah.
He's not the same person that he was. He was learning, right?
Right.
And I love him dearly. And all of my family.
Yeah.
Right. But, and I realize how, yes, challenging and at times, yes, messed up and all of that. But I'm like, I don't know what family doesn't have that.
Yep.
And so to be able to to look at things, I mean, I've got a great group of friends now and constantly growing.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel at home, and home became my family. And then when I lost them, I didn't even know what that was anymore.
Yeah.
And then I'm at a place where home is within me.
Yeah.
And it's that subtle, that was wanting that back, was that voice, right? Like that there's a homeness.
Yeah.
In that kind of intimacy of realizing that even when we're sitting here right now, you look around at all the equipment, all the things that you're here, how many hands and how many people went into making every single one of those things? Like you are not alone.
Right.
And look at all the things and all the people that were working together for you to have this like beautiful home that you were in. Right.
Yeah.
And that because of the community and that you are just nestled into this like incredible web of love.
Yeah.
Right. And secure. You are so secure.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that pain and that loss and then even physical health issues come out of those things. And so we can work with hypnosis on multiple things because we're going back to like what is the emotion behind it? What is the root, or what are those things?
Yeah.
So then you can see some pretty big shifts. Excuse me, there's my voice again. You can see some big shifts.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because you're addressing that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Oh my gosh, I love it. There's so many different things we could dive into, but we're over 3.5 hours into this.
Holy cow.
And we could go for another 3.5 hours, but I have three final questions.
Okay. Awesome. Yep.
My first one is, who's going to finish Dad's book?
Yeah.
Do you have that on your?
I realized
bingo
that
card?
It's my life to live.
Ah, yes.
I'm not living somebody else's life.
Yep.
And that was part of the pain.
Yep.
I think maybe at one point I would write. Like I've been writing articles for Neighbors magazines. My husband and I are publishers of that every month. And when I'm done with this series, I'll look at doing seasonal reflections or like finding a way to pull those together.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that is in the back of my head.
It is. I was going to say, because how do people find your books, by the way?
Yeah. So I'm on Amazon, but you can also, I think probably one of the easiest things is thegracefulleaf.com.
Perfect.
So there's 2 L's in there, right? Graceful Leaf.
Yep.
And that actually links to work with me. You can go to my business. You can also see the books.
Yeah.
So my other practice, Idaho Therapeutic Massage, it takes you there. And then it also has a link to be able to purchase the books.
Okay, wonderful.
And so I'll have the spring up when the spring edition is out as well. And then I'm going to be launching hopefully soon. I'm working on so many things at once.
Yeah, you've got a lot of
So I'm launching the Christian Wellness Club. So it's biblical foundations for health and a deep dive into herbal and wellness education.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm passionate about is raising the standard for health.
Yes.
We were, and mentioned both of my parents really struggled with their weight and things were really challenging. We always went to potlucks and stuff, like church potlucks, and it was always the most unhealthy food.
Yeah, it's not good stuff.
And
delicious, but not good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, but give me a really good crunchy, like give me the granola people. They have really good potlucks.
Yeah,
so I think if we could like have a little bit of herbal education, and learning, I think this is a good time for it. People are really ripe for
very receptive.
So so I'm doing that. But yeah, it's in the back of my head because I have some other book projects as well.
Yeah. I was just curious if your dad's was in that mix because you had mentioned it earlier, and then his words being used at your wedding. It seems like that. Yeah, I'm glad it's at least in the back of your head. And whether it's your project to take on or not, I was just curious.
Yeah, I've have all these newsletters and stuff that I've organized.
Yeah.
To try to like know about the time, and then that's been on pause, and I come back to that idea or that thought, but I think that it does scare me a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, even in this format, right? Like you want to tell the story. There's certain things that are instrumental in the story.
Right.
But you also want to do right by the people in your world as well.
Yeah.
And go, we were all dumb. You know, we all made mistakes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And there's so much love and there's so much forgiveness there.
Yes.
Right. Through that. And there's things that I've done and said to people that is just like, oh my gosh, right? Like we all
have.
We all do.
Yeah.
And so so that is a little concerning. I have another project that is in my head that if I develop the courage, then I'll step into that as well. So there's a lot of different ones. I think.
Well, in the book of Sherilyn, that's
even doing this right now is a way of like triggering some of those memories, right? So then that way, if I do sit down to write, then I'll remember a little bit more.
They're there. Yeah. Well, and I cannot thank you enough for how open and sharing, and this has been just magnificent. So thank you for sharing you.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there anything that we didn't touch on that makes you that you wanted to say?
I think we covered a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love nature. I love herbs. I love adventure.
Yeah. Oh, that comes across. I love that.
I love it. And you know what? Like, again, having that positive view. So one of the things that I learned is that mood, there's different kinds of mood. There's a few different things. When you have the perspective that you are powerless, when you are conditionally powerful, or when you are unconditionally powerful.
Oh, yeah.
And a big part of my journey has been going from that self-pity victim mindset of the world is happening to me to saying, I will find a way.
Yeah, cool.
And to expect challenges.
Yeah.
Rather than going, okay, I feel powerful when only when things are going right for me.
Yeah.
That it doesn't matter like what's happening. There is that lining in the clouds.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
So that's a big piece
belief
for me. Yeah.
I love that. Well, and my favorite question, it's my last question, might tie into some of that maybe, is if you had a megaphone that could reach everybody in the world, what's your message to them?
Healing is your birthright.
Oh, that's so good. Yes, it is.
You are made to heal.
Yeah.
You are healing every day, and even the symptoms that you experience is part of your body trying to keep you alive.
Yes.
And you are so loved. But healing is your birthright.
Yeah.
If I said one more thing, it would be the end of the story is really good.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah. Hang in there.
Yeah.
The end of the story is good.
Yeah. Amen to all of that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. Sherilyn, thank you. This has been
you.
an absolute treat.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Brandon.